Hey guys, tonight we are leaving the history books behind. We are stepping into the dust, the heat, and the silence of the American frontier. But this isn't the version you've seen in the movies. There are no clean shirts here. There are no perfectly timed duels at high noon. This is the grit and the grind of the black cowboy. The men who made up nearly 1 in 4 of every hand on the cattle trails, yet somehow vanished from the stories. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy this quiet corner of storytelling. And let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from and what time it is for you. It's always grounding to know who else is awake with us. Now, dim the lights. Turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. Congratulations. You've just woken up in the year 1875. You're somewhere on the Goodnight-loving trail, a stretch of unforgiving earth that winds its way from Texas up through New Mexico. The good news, you're alive, and you're free. The bad news, you're exhausted in a way that modern humans have forgotten how to be. The first thing you notice isn't the sunrise, it's the ground. You're sleeping on it. There is no tent. There is no bedroll, unless you count a thin, rough wool blanket that smells of horse sweat and wood smoke. Your pillow is your saddle, hard leather pressing against your neck, but you don't dare move it because out here, a saddle is worth more than your life. If you lose your horse, you're just a man walking in a desert. And men walking in deserts don't last long. You blink awake, not because an alarm went off, but because the ground is vibrating. It's a low rhythmic thrumming that you feel in your spine before you hear it. That is the sound of 2,000 head of longhorn cattle stirring. They are massive, prehistoric-looking beasts with horns that span 6 feet tip to tip, and they are waking up grumpy. The air is cold. That's the thing nobody tells you about the West. They tell you about the heat, the baking sun that peels the skin off your nose. But they forget to mention the pre-dawn chill on the high plains. It bites through your thin cotton shirt. You shiver, your joints stiff from sleeping on hard-packed dirt. You're likely wearing the same clothes you've worn for the last 3 weeks. A flannel shirt that used to be red but is now a uniform shade of dust brown. Canvas trousers that are stiff with grime and grease. You sit up and rub your face. Your hands are rough, calloused in places that haven't healed in years. There is dirt under your fingernails that will never come out. The smell hits you next. It's not the fresh scent of pine or sagebrush. It is the overwhelming, ammonia-heavy scent of cattle. It's the smell of thousands of animals living, breathing, and relieving themselves in a confined space. It clings to your hair. It clings to your skin. After a few days on the trail, you stop smelling it. You just become part of it. Breakfast is not a leisure activity. It is a calorie-loading operation. You walk over to the chuck wagon, the heart and soul of the outfit. The cook, an older man who likely served in the Civil War and has no patience for complaints, is already awake. He's been awake for an hour. The fire is low, just embers now, keeping a massive cast-iron pot of coffee warm. You take a tin cup. It's dented, hot to the touch. The coffee inside is black, thick, and bitter enough to strip the enamel off your teeth. They call it 6-shooter coffee, because it's strong enough to float a pistol. There is no sugar. There is no cream. You drink it because it's warm and because it wakes you up. Next comes the food. Forget eggs and bacon. Fresh eggs don't survive a cattle drive. Bacon goes rancid in the heat. Instead, you get sow belly, salted pork fat that has been fried until it's edible, though barely. You get biscuits, but not the fluffy kind. These are hardtack or sourdough biscuits baked in a Dutch oven, dense enough to serve as doorstops. You dip them in the grease from the pork just to get them soft enough to chew. And beans. Always beans. Pecos strawberries, they call them. They are salty, mushy, and seasoned with nothing but grit. You eat standing up. There are no chairs. Sitting on the ground is risky because of scorpions and rattlesnakes seeking the warmth of the fire. You chew mechanically, eyes scanning the horizon. The sun is just starting to bleed purple and orange over the edge of the world. It's beautiful, in a desolate, terrifying way. But you don't have time to admire the view. The trail boss, a man who speaks in grunts and orders, signals that it's time to move. This is your life as a black cowboy. You aren't just a labourer, you're a specialist in survival. Many of the men you ride with are like you, formerly enslaved, or the sons of those who were. The West offered a strange kind of equality. A steer doesn't care about the colour of your skin, it only cares if you can rope it. A river doesn't care about your history, it only cares if you can swim. But that doesn't mean it's easy. You saddle your horse. He's a Mustang, small, wiry and mean. He tries to bite you as you tighten the cinch. You don't blame him. He's tired too. You mount up, the leather groaning under your weight. Your job today is drag. In the hierarchy of the cattle drive, drag is the bottom rung. The herd moves in a long, thin line. At the front are the point riders, the most experienced men who guide the lead steers. At the sides are the swing and flank riders, keeping the herd tight. And at the back, swallowing the dust of 2,000 animals, is you. As the herd starts to move, a cloud of dust rises instantly. It's a fine, powdery grit that coats everything. Within minutes, you can't see the rider 10 feet in front of you. You pull, your bandana up over your nose and mouth. This isn't a fashion statement, it's a filter. Without it, your lungs would be coated in mud by noon. The dust gets everywhere. It's in your eyes, making them water and sting. It's in your ears. It works its way down your collar and mixes with the sweat on your back, creating a grinding paste that chafes your skin raw. You spend the next 12 hours in this cloud. You're shouting constantly, driving the stragglers, the lame cows, the calves that want to lay down and die. You whistle, you yell, you slap your chaps. Your throat is dry, parched by the dust and the shouting. You have a canteen, but the water inside is warm and tastes of metal. You ration it. You don't know when you'll hit the next creek, and even if you do, the water might be alkali, bitter and poisonous to drink. The sun climbs higher. By noon, it is a hammer beating down on your hat. There is no shade. The plains are a flat, endless ocean of grass and scrub. Heat waves shimmy off the ground, distorting the horizon. You feel yourself baking inside your clothes. You can't take them off because the sun would burn you to a crisp in an hour. So you sweat. You sweat until you stop sweating, which is dangerous. And then there are the flies. Great swarms of biting horseflies that plague the cattle and you. They land on your neck, your hands. They bite deep, drawing blood. The cattle stomp and toss their heads, agitated. A restless herd is a dangerous herd. If they spook, if a jackrabbit jumps at the wrong moment or thunder claps too loud, 2,000 animals will run. A stampede isn't just a rush of noise, it's an earthquake. If you're in front of it, you're dead. There is no surviving a stampede if your horse stumbles. You become part of the geology. This is the reality of the drive. It isn't glory. It isn't adventure. It is boredom punctuated by moments of sheer terror. It is endurance. But let's talk about the silence. When the herd settles down for a midday rest or nooning, the silence of the plains is heavy. It presses on your ears. There are no engines, no city hums, just the wind hissing through the dry grass and the lowing of cattle. It's lonely. You might ride next to another man for days and say only 10 words. Cows drifting left. Water ahead. Storm coming. Conversation takes energy, and you don't have energy to spare. You look at your hands, gripping the reins. They are dark, scarred, essential. These hands have roped steers in the rain. They have dug graves for friends who died of pneumonia or a broken neck. They have held a branding iron until the heat blistered the palms. Being a black cowboy meant you were often given the hardest jobs, breaking the wildest horses, riding drag in the dust, but it also meant you were indispensable. You carried skills that couldn't be faked. You knew how to read the sky. You knew that a greenish tint to the clouds meant hail was coming, and hail on. The plains could be the size of baseballs, lethal to man and beast. You knew how to find water by watching the flight of birds. As the afternoon wears on, your body settles into a dull ache. Your knees hurt from gripping the saddle. Your lower back screams. But you keep riding, you have to. Dinner is the same as breakfast, just darker. The cook might have thrown some dried apples into a pie if he was feeling charitable, but don't count on it. You eat by the firelight, the only light for 100 miles. The darkness out here is absolute. Without the moon, you can't see your own hand in front of your face. This is when the stories come out. But they aren't the tall tales of heroes. They are practical stories, information disguised as entertainment. A rider might talk about a river crossing up north, where the current is tricky, dragging horses under. Another might mention a town in Kansas where the sheriff doesn't take kindly to blackfaces after sundown. These aren't just stories, they are survival guides. You listen, you file the information away, you lay your blanket out again. The ground hasn't gotten any softer. The air is cooling rapidly, the heat of the day vanishing into the thin atmosphere. You can hear the coyotes yipping in the distance, a lonely, high-pitched sound. You check your boots for scorpions before you take them off, or maybe you leave them on. Sometimes, if trouble comes, you don't want to be barefoot. You close your eyes, but you don't sleep deeply. You sleep with one ear open. You are listening for the shift in the herd's breathing. You're listening for the snap of a twig that shouldn't be there. You are listening because out here, silence is safety and noise is danger. You survive the night, you wake up, and you do it all again. But survival wasn't just about endurance on the trail. It was about navigating a world that wasn't built for you. Let's step away from the cattle drive for a moment and look at the towns. You ride into a place like Dodge City or Abilene. You've got money in your pocket. Payday after 3 months of eating dust. You want a bath, you want a drink, you want to feel like a human being again. But the town has invisible lines. You know them without being told. There are saloons where you can drink and saloons where you can't. There are hotels that will take your money and hotels that will meet you with a shotgun at the door. The myth of the Wild West is a lawless place, but that's not true. It was full of laws. Unwritten, brutal laws. As a black cowboy, you had to be sharper, calmer, and faster than everyone else. You couldn't afford to be hot-headed. A white cowboy gets drunk and shoots out a street lamp. He gets a fine and a night in jail to sleep it off. You do the same, you might not make it to the jail. So you learnt a different kind of survival. You learned the art of being present but invisible. You walked with a quiet confidence that said, I belong here, without challenging the fragile egos around you. You stuck with your crew. The loyalty of the outfit was often the only law that mattered. If you rode for the brand rode for you. White, black, Hispanic. On the trail, you were brothers in dust. In town, that brotherhood was tested. Sometimes it held, sometimes it didn't. Let's talk about the food again, because hunger is a constant companion in this era. You might think of the West as a place of abundance. Buffalo, deer, wide open spaces. But on the trail, you ate what the wagon carried. And the wagon carried things that didn't rot. There was no refrigeration. That meant no fresh meat unless you killed a steer or game along the way. But killing a steer was losing money. So you ate jerky. Strips of beef dried in the sun until they had the texture of shoe leather. You had to gnaw on it for 10 minutes just to soften it up enough to swallow. It was salty, tough, and saved your life. Then there was son-of-a-gun stew. This was a dish born of necessity. When a calf was killed, nothing was wasted. The stew contained the heart, the liver, the brains, the kidneys, the sweetbreads, and the marrow gut. It was a thick, iron-rich slurry that kept you strong, even if the texture was challenging. You didn't ask what was in the pot. You just thanked the cook and ate, and water. Water was the gold of the plains. You learned to drink water that looked like chocolate milk because of the mud. You learned to filter it through your bandana to catch the swimming bugs. You learned that if the horses wouldn't drink it, you shouldn't either. Sometimes you'd go 2 days without seeing a stream. Your tongue would swell in your mouth. Your lips would crack and bleed. And when you finally found a water hole, it might be surrounded by the carcasses of animals that didn't make it. You pushed the bones aside and filled your canteen anyway. This was the West, not a movie set, not a playground. It was a machine made of weather and distance, designed to grind you down. But despite it all, there was a freedom here, a strange, paradox freedom. Back east, or down south, the rules were rigid. The ceiling was low. Here, on the back of a horse, with nothing but the sky above you, you were measured by your skill. Could you calm a spooked herd? Could you find the trail in a blizzard? Could you shoot straight when it mattered? One of the most famous of these men was Beau Ricard. He was born into bondage in Mississippi, came to Texas, and became a top hand for Charles Goodnight. He was a rider, a fighter, and a banker, carrying thousands of dollars in cash for the boss because he was the most trusted man in the outfit. When he died, Goodnight carved a wooden marker for him that read, "Served with me 4 years on the Goodnight-loving trail, never shirked a duty or disobeyed an order, rode with me in many stampedes, participated in 3 engagements with Comanches, and was the bravest man I ever knew." That epitaph is rare. Most black cowboys didn't get wooden markers. They didn't get history books. They just got the work. They got the dust in their lungs and the arthritis in their hands. They got the long, cold nights under the stars. And maybe, just maybe, that was enough. Because out there in the dark with the fire crackling and the cattle sleeping, they were free in a way few people ever are. They owned their labour. They owned their skills. They owned the night. As the fire dies down in your imaginary camp and the cold presses in closer, you realise that you wouldn't last a day here because you haven't built up the callus. You haven't learned to eat silence. You haven't learned to sleep on rocks. But they did. They thrived in it. Now, let the dust settle. Let the sound of the herd fade into the distance. We're going to leave the open plains now, but we aren't leaving the struggle for survival. We're going back further, much further, to a place where stone tells a different story. A story not of cowboys, but of kings and engineers who built something the world said was impossible. We're travelling back now, leaving the dust of the American West behind. The year is 1300, and you are standing in the shadow of something colossal. You're in southern Africa, in the heart of the Kingdom of Zimbabwe, and what stands before you is a fortress made of granite, towering 30 feet into the air, built without a single drop of mortar. Congratulations, you have just arrived at the great enclosure. The good news? You're witnessing one of the greatest architectural achievements of the medieval world. The bad news? You are a builder here, and the work you do is harder than anything modern construction crews could imagine. The first thing you notice is the heat. It is different from the dry heat of the Texas plains. This heat is heavy. It presses down on your shoulders. The air smells of burning wood from the smelting furnaces and the damp, earthy scent of the granite hills. You're standing at the base of a wall that curves like a living thing. It is 11 metres high. That's over 3 stories, and at the base it is 6 metres thick. There is no cement holding these stones together, no metal reinforcements, just gravity, friction and genius. Your job is to find the stone, but you don't just pick up any rock, you have to harvest it. The granite here peels off the hillsides in layers, like the skin of an onion, due to the extreme temperature changes between day and night. You wait for the cold night air to shrink the rock, then the blistering morning sun to expand it. Crack. A slab breaks free. You have to shape these slabs into bricks. You have no steel chisels. You're using diorite hammers, stones harder than granite, to chip away at the blocks until they are perfectly rectangular. Your hands are constantly vibrating from the impact. The dust from the stone coats your skin, turning you grey. It gets in your eyes. It gets in your lungs. You breathe stone dust until you taste it in your sleep. But the real challenge is the assembly. You're not just stacking rocks. You're building a wall that leans inward ever so slightly. A batter, so that gravity pulls it tighter together over time. If you get the angle wrong by a fraction of a degree, the whole thing collapses. There are no lasers to guide you, no levels. Just your eye and a plumb bob made of a stone on a string. You are working on the conical tower now, a solid stone silo inside the great enclosure that looks like a grain bin for the gods. It is 30 feet high. You're balancing on wooden scaffolding lashed together with rope made from baobab bark. It creaks and sways in the wind. If you fall, there is no safety net, just the hard granite floor below. The noise of the construction site is deafening, thousands of hammers hitting stone at once. It sounds like a hailstorm that never ends. You communicate with hand signals because shouting is useless. Lunch is a brief pause in the shade of a marula tree. You eat sadza, a thick porridge made from millet or sorghum, served with a relish of wild greens or maybe a bit of roasted goat meat if the king has had a successful hunt. You drink water from an earthen pot, cool and sweet. You rest for 20 minutes, just enough time for the sweat to dry on your skin, leaving salt crystals behind. Then, back to the wall. This isn't just a fortress, it's a machine. The narrow passageways between the walls are designed to cool the air. As the wind hits the curved outer wall, it speeds up, rushing through the narrow gap and dropping the temperature inside by 10 degrees. It is passive air conditioning, invented centuries before electricity. You feel the breeze on your face as you work, a small mercy in the baking afternoon. But Great Zimbabwe isn't just stone, it's gold. You see the traders arriving from the coast, men speaking Swahili, Arabic and Portuguese. They bring porcelain from China, glass beads from Persia, and cloth from India. In exchange, they want gold, and the gold comes from the mines you and your kin operate. Mining here is a nightmare of claustrophobia. The shafts are narrow, barely wide enough for a man to crawl. You descend into the dark with a torch, the smoke stinging your eyes. You chip away at quartz veins with iron picks, listening for the groan of the earth above you. Cave-ins are common. If the roof comes down, no one can dig you out in time. You work in the dark, breathing bad air, praying to the ancestors that the rock holds. When you emerge, blinking in the sunlight, you carry the wealth of a kingdom in a leather sack. This gold will travel thousands of miles. It will end up in the crowns of European kings who don't even know your city exists. They call you primitive. You look at the walls you built, walls that will stand for 700 years, and you know the truth. You are an engineer of the highest order. As the sun sets, the city transforms. The stone walls glow orange and red, absorbing the heat of the day to release it slowly through the cold night. You walk back to your hut, a circular structure made of dega, a mix of clay and gravel that dries as hard as cement. The roof is thatched with grass, intricate and thick. Inside it is cool and dark. You sit on a reed mat. Your muscles are tight, coiled like springs. You can still feel the phantom vibration of the hammer in your hand. The night sounds of Great Zimbabwe are different from the plains. You hear the low murmur of thousands of people. This is a metropolis, home to 18,000 souls. You hear the distant roar of a lion in the valley, reminding you that the walls keep more than just enemies out. You hear the rhythmic pounding of grain in mortars, the heartbeat of the city. You survived the day. You didn't fall from the scaffold. You didn't get crushed in the mine. You didn't succumb to heat stroke. You built something that will outlast your name, your language, and your memory. But now let's shift gears. Survival isn't always about building walls. Sometimes it's about moving through them unseen. We are leaving the stones of Zimbabwe and jumping forward in time, across the ocean, to a different kind of darkness. The year is 1850. You're in the swamps of North Carolina, and you are running. Congratulations. You're a passenger on the Underground Railroad, but erase the image of a literal train from your mind. There are no tracks here. There are no tickets. There's only mud, water, and the terrifying sound of dogs baying in the distance. You are wet. You have been wet for 3 days. The swamp water is up to your waist, black and stagnant. It smells of rot and old vegetation. You move slowly, lifting your legs high to avoid splashing. Noise is death. If a twig snaps, you freeze. If a bird flies up, you crouch. The conductor leading you isn't wearing a uniform. He's a man who looks just like you, maybe a little older, with eyes that scan the dark like a hawk. He doesn't speak. He uses hand signals. A raised fist means stop. A flat hand pushing down means hide underwater. You are following the drinking gourd, the Big Dipper. It hangs in the northern sky, a cold, bright guide. But looking up is dangerous because you need to watch for snakes. Water moccasins glide through the swamp, invisible until they strike. You carry a sturdy stick to push them away, but you can't hit the water hard, or the sound will carry. Your clothes are rags. They offer no protection against the mosquitoes. Clouds of them swarm your face, biting your eyelids, your lips. You want to slap them, to scream, but you can't. You just let them bite. The itch is maddening, a constant burning fire under your skin. Hunger is a dull ache in your belly. You haven't eaten a full meal in days. You're surviving on raw corn you stole from a field, maybe some berries if you're lucky. You can't light a fire to cook. Fire is a beacon. It says, "Here I am, come catch me." So you eat cold, hard kernels and drink swamp water filtered through your sleeve, hoping it won't kill you with dysentery. The stations you've heard about aren't buildings with signs. A station might be a barn with a loose floorboard. It might be a false bottom in a wagon. It might just be a patch of dry ground deep in the woods where someone left a sack of potatoes. You reach a clearing, the conductor signals, you wait. Minutes tick by, feeling like hours. Then a sound. Not a dog, a hoot owl. But the rhythm is wrong. Hoot, hoot, hoot. It's a signal. A figure steps out of the shadows. It's a woman, white, dressed in plain clothes. She doesn't look at you with pity. She looks at you with urgency. She hands you a bundle, dry socks, a piece of cornbread, a map drawn on cloth that won't rustle. She whispers, 2 miles north. Look for the quilt on the line, the one with the centre square in black. You nod. You don't say thank you. There isn't time. You move on. This is the genius of the Underground Railroad. It wasn't a single organisation. It was a chaotic, decentralised web of secrets. Codes were hidden in plain sight. A song sung in a field, wade in the water, wasn't just a spiritual, it was an instruction. It meant the dogs are coming, get into the river to hide your scent. A quilt hanging on a porch wasn't just laundry. The pattern told you if it was safe to approach, or if bounty hunters were inside. The monkey wrench pattern meant gather your tools, get ready to go. The drunkard's path pattern meant take a zigzag route to avoid pursuers. You had to memorize these visual codes because writing them down was a death sentence. If you were caught with a map, you were finished. If you had a quilt pattern in your head, no one could prove a thing. You trudge on. The physical toll is immense. Your feet are swollen, the skin peeling from being wet for so long. Blisters have formed, popped, and formed again. Infection is a constant threat. A simple cut from a briar patch could turn septic and kill you before you reach the Ohio River. You sleep during the day, hiding in thickets or hollow logs. You sleep in shifts, one person always watching. You learn to sleep sitting up, back against a tree, ready to bolt at the snap of a twig. You dream of running. You wake up running. The fear is a physical weight. It sits on your chest. It makes your heart hammer against your ribs like a trapped bird. Every stranger is an enemy. Every dog bark is a threat. You're hunting for freedom, but you are the prey. But there is something else here too, a fierce burning resolve. You look at the person next to you, a mother carrying a sleeping child on her back. She is exhausted, her eyes hollow, but she keeps putting one foot in front of the other. She isn't doing this for herself. She's doing it so that the child on her back will never know the sound of the auction block. That resolve is the fuel. It burns hotter than the fear. You reach the river. It is wide, dark, and fast. This is the line, the Jordan. Across that water is a different set of laws. Not safety exactly. The Fugitive Slave Act means they can still hunt you down in the north. But a chance. You wade in. The water is freezing. It shocks the breath out of you. You swim, fighting the current, fighting the weight of your wet clothes. You reach the other side, clawing your way up the muddy bank. You collapse, gasping, shivering uncontrollably. You made it. For tonight. You wring out your clothes. You eat the last of the cornbread. You look at the North Star. It hasn't moved. It's still pulling you. Survival here isn't about muscle. It's about secrets. It's about reading the landscape like a book written in a language only you and your conductors understand. It's about trust in a world that has given you no reason to trust anyone. The sun begins to rise, painting the northern sky in pale grey. You stand up, your legs tremble, but they hold. You're tired, you're hungry, you're hunted, but you are moving. And as you disappear into the morning mist of a free state, you realise that the Underground Railroad wasn't built of iron and steam. It was built of silence, courage, and the indomitable human will to be free. The river is behind you now, but the danger hasn't vanished. It has simply changed shape. You're walking north, and the landscape is shifting from the swamps of the south to the rolling hills of the border states. The air is cooler here, less humid, but it carries the scent of coal smoke and industry. You're exhausted, your boots are falling apart, and every step is a negotiation with gravity. You stumble into a barn just before dawn. It smells of dry hay and old leather. You collapse into a corner, pulling a horse blanket over you. Your body shuts down instantly, plunging you into a deep, dreamless sleep. When you wake, the light is filtering through the slats of the barn wall in dusty beams. Someone is watching you. It's a man, older, with a face like weathered oak. He's holding a pitchfork, but not aggressively. He's leaning on it. He's black, a free man living on the edge of a town that tolerates him but doesn't welcome him. He nods at you. "Stay low," he says. "Sheriff's been asking questions." This is the next phase of your survival. You're no longer running through the wilderness. You're hiding in plain sight. The Underground Railroad isn't just about movement. It's about camouflage. You have to learn how to be invisible in a crowd. The man gives you clothes, work clothes, worn but clean, a pair of sturdy trousers, a shirt that buttons all the way up. He hands you a hat with a wide brim. "Pull it down," he advises. "Don't look anyone in the eye. If they ask, you're my nephew from up the road, here to help with the harvest." You spend the day working, you mend fences, you chop wood. The physical labour is familiar, comforting, even. It grounds you. But your mind is racing. You are listening to every passing wagon, every voice on the road. You're learning the rhythm of this new place. Night falls. The man brings you a plate of food, actual food. Roasted chicken, potatoes, greens. It tastes like the best meal you've ever had. You eat with your hands, tearing the meat from the bone. He watches you, a silent understanding passing between you. He knows what you've been through because he went through it 20 years ago. Tomorrow night, he says, a wagon comes. It's carrying grain to Cleveland. There's a space under the sacks. Tight, but safe. You nod. Tight spaces are better than chains. The next night, the wagon arrives. The driver is a white Quaker, a man with a stern face and gentle hands. He helps you climb into the false bottom of the wagon bed. It is a coffin-sized box, barely enough room to turn your head. He lays planks over you, then piles heavy sacks of grain on top. The darkness is total. The air is thick with dust. You feel the weight of the grain pressing down on you. Claustrophobia claws at your throat. You have to control your breathing. Shallow breaths. Slow heart rate. Panic uses oxygen, and you don't have much to spare. The wagon starts to move. The jolting is brutal. Every bump in the road slams your body against the wood. You feel bruises forming on your shoulders, your hips. The journey takes hours. You lose track of time. You drift in and out of consciousness, lulled by the rhythmic creaking of the wheels. Suddenly the wagon stops. Voices. Rough, demanding voices. Slave catchers. They are patrolling the roads, looking for bounties. Your heart stops. You hold your breath. You hear the driver speaking calmly, explaining his cargo. You hear footsteps crunching on the gravel near the wagon. A dog barks. The dog is the problem. Dogs can smell fear. You press your hand over your mouth, trying to silence even the sound of your own blood rushing in your ears. The dog whines, scratching at the wheel. "Move along," a voice says. "Just grain." The wagon lurches forward. You exhale a silent scream of relief. You are alive. You are moving. You arrive in Cleveland 2 days later. The driver helps you out. You are stiff, covered in grain dust, dehydrated. He hands you a canteen. Lake Erie is that way, he points. Canada is across the water. But we aren't going to Canada today. We're jumping forward again, leaving the 19th century behind and stepping into a different kind of struggle. A struggle not for freedom from chains, but for survival in a world that has forgotten you. The year is 1921. You are in Tulsa, Oklahoma, specifically the Greenwood district. They call it Black Wall Street. Congratulations, you have woken up in one of the most prosperous black communities in America. The streets are paved. There are brick buildings, theatres, libraries, hospitals. People walk with their heads held high. Men in three-piece suits tip their hats to women in silk dresses. The air smells of barbecue smoke and expensive perfume. You hear jazz music drifting from an open window, a saxophone wailing a low blue note. It feels like paradise compared to the swamp. But look closer. There is a tension here, a vibration in the air like a violin string pulled too tight. You're surrounded by wealth, yes, but you're also surrounded by resentment. Just across the tracks, the white population of Tulsa is watching, and they are angry. You're a business owner here. Maybe you run a grocery store or a tailor shop. You've built this from nothing. You survived the Jim Crow laws, the segregation, the daily humiliations, and you built something beautiful. You have a home with electricity and indoor plumbing. You have a car, a Model T Ford that you polish every Sunday. But survival here requires a different set of skills. It requires vigilance. You know that your success is an affront to some people. You keep a shotgun behind the counter just in case. You teach your children to be polite, to never talk back to a white person, to make themselves small when they leave the district. It is a survival strategy born of necessity. It is May 31st. The day starts like any other. You open your shop, you greet your neighbours, but by afternoon, rumours are flying. A young black man has been arrested, accused of assaulting a white girl in an elevator. The story is flimsy, likely false, but the truth doesn't matter. The mob is gathering at the courthouse. You close up shop early. You go home, lock the doors, pull the shades. You can hear the shouting from downtown. It sounds like a storm approaching. Then the shooting starts. It isn't a skirmish. It is an invasion. Pickup trucks loaded with armed men roar into Greenwood. They are firing indiscriminately into homes, businesses, churches. You grab your family, you grab your shotgun. But what can you do against 1,000 men? You flee. You leave the house you built, the car you polished, the life you made. You run into the streets, which are now a war zone. Buildings are burning. The sky is choked with black smoke. It smells of burning timber, burning rubber, and something sweeter, more terrible, burning hair. You see airplanes overhead. Private planes, dropping homemade turpentine bombs onto the rooftops. It is an aerial assault on an American city. You can't believe your eyes. You make it to the outskirts of town, hiding in the tall grass. You watch as Black Wall Street burns to the ground. 35 blocks, gone. Over 1,000 homes destroyed. Hundreds dead. Survival here meant losing everything but your life. It meant watching your hard work turn to ash and having to start over from zero, with the knowledge that it could happen again. It meant swallowing the rage and the grief because if you showed it, they might kill you too. But you survived. You rebuilt. Not the buildings, maybe, but the community. The spirit. You moved to Chicago, or Detroit, or New York. You carried the memory of Greenwood with you like a secret coal, burning hot in your chest. And now, let's go to one of those places where the coal reignited. Let's go to Harlem. The year is 1925. It is night. It is always night in Harlem because that's when the city wakes up. You're walking down Lenox Avenue. The streetlights reflect off the wet pavement, creating pools of liquid gold. The air is electric. It smells of rain, gin, and fried chicken. You hear music, not just from one place, but from everywhere. A trumpet blasting from a basement speakeasy. A piano tinkling from a rent party on the 3rd floor. Laughter, shouting, life. This is the Harlem Renaissance. It is a cultural explosion. But survival here is tricky. It's a hustle. You are a musician, or a poet, or maybe just a dreamer who came north during the Great Migration looking for a break. You live in a kitchenette, an apartment subdivided into tiny rooms shared with 3 other families. The walls are thin. You hear everything. The arguments, the lovemaking, the crying babies. You don't have much money. You survive on rent parties. When the landlord comes knocking and your pockets are empty, you throw a party. You charge a quarter at the door. You cook up a big pot of hopping john, black-eyed peas and rice. You get a piano player to pound out stride rhythms until the floorboards shake. The neighbours come, they pay, they eat, they dance, and by morning you have enough to pay the rent for another month. It is a community economy, a survival system built on joy and rhythm. But the streets are dangerous too. There are gangsters running the numbers rackets. There are police who see a black man in a suit and assume he stole it. You have to be smart. You have to know when to talk fast and when to shut up. You have to know which clubs are safe and which ones are fronts for the mob. You walk into the Cotton Club. It is glamorous, glittering. White celebrities are there, movie stars, politicians. They come uptown to watch black entertainers perform, but they don't let black people sit in the audience. You are the show, not the guest. It is a bitter pill to swallow. You smile, you tap dance, you blow your horn. You give them what they want, but in your head you are writing a different song. A song about dignity. A song about rage. Survival in Harlem is mental. It is about maintaining your self-worth in a world that wants to reduce you to a caricature. It is about creating art that screams, I am here, I matter. You leave the club at 4 a.m. The streets are quieter now, but never silent. You stop at a food cart for a hot dog. The vendor knows you. He gives you extra mustard. You eat it walking home, the steam warming your face. You climb the stairs to your kitchenette. It smells of cabbage and floor wax. You lie down on your cot. You're tired, bone-tired, but your mind is buzzing with melodies. You survived the South. You survived the journey. You are surviving the city. And tomorrow you will wake up and make something beautiful out of the struggle. Because that is what you do. That is how you win. As you drift off to sleep in your imaginary Harlem apartment, listening to the distant wail of a siren and the closer rhythm of rain on the window pane, you realize that survival has many faces. It is the cowboy in the dust. It is the builder on the scaffold. It is the runaway in the swamp. It is the merchant in the ashes. It is the poet in the kitchenette. They all share one thing, a refusal to be erased, a determination to exist, to build, to move forward, no matter what the world throws at them. You pull the blanket up. The city hums its lullaby. You are safe here, for now. The jazz of Harlem fades into the distance, replaced by a sound much colder and sharper. The wind howling through a mountain pass. You open your eyes. It is 1897. You're no longer in a city of lights. You're in the rugged wilderness of Montana, stationed at Fort Missoula. The air here is thin and bites at your lungs like crushed ice. Congratulations. You're a member of the 25th Infantry Regiment. You're a Buffalo soldier, but you aren't on a horse. You're standing next to a bicycle. This sounds absurd to modern ears, but it is your reality. The army is testing a new theory, that bicycles are cheaper, quieter, and faster than horses, and you are the test subject. The machine next to you is a Spalding military bicycle. It weighs nearly 70 pounds when fully loaded. It has a steel frame, thick rubber tyres, and absolutely no suspension. Strapped to the handlebars is your knapsack, a blanket roll, a shelter half, a piece of a tent, and a Krag-Jurgensen rifle. It is a beast of iron and canvas, and you have to ride it across the Rocky Mountains. You start your morning routine. It isn't about coffee, it's about mechanics. You check the tyres. They are pneumatic, filled with air, which is a luxury, but they puncture easily on the sharp rocks of the trail. You run your hand along the rubber, feeling for thorns or flint. You check the chain. It's caked in mud from yesterday's ride through the rain. You have to clean it. You take a rag soaked in kerosene and scrub the links. The smell is pungent, cutting through the crisp scent of pine needles. You grease it with tallow. Your hands are black with oil and dirt. You're not just a soldier, you're a mechanic. If this bike breaks down in the middle of nowhere, you're walking, and walking with 70 pounds of gear in bare country is not a good option. The order comes to move out. You mount the bike. It groans under your weight. The seat is hard leather. After a week, your legs are like iron, but your body aches in places you didn't know existed. You begin to pedal. The trail isn't a road. It's a suggestion. It's a rutted wagon track filled with mud, the consistency of glue. The mud clogs your spokes. It builds up under the fork until the wheel won't turn. You have to stop, get off, and scrape the mud away with a stick. You do this every mile. Stop, scrape, ride. Stop, scrape, ride. It is a rhythm of frustration. Then come the mountains. You can't ride up a 40-degree incline on a gravel path. So you push. You push the bike up the mountain, your boots slipping on the loose shale. The air is so thin it makes you dizzy. You can hear the man behind you breathing hard, the rhythmic huff-huff of exertion. You are a unit of 20 men, moving like a strange, silent caterpillar through the wilderness. When you reach the summit, the view is spectacular. Snow-capped peaks stretching forever. But you don't look at the view. You look at the descent. Riding down is terrifying. The brakes are primitive. If you squeeze too hard, you skid. If you don't squeeze hard enough, you fly off the edge. You feather the brakes, your knuckles white, vibrating with every bump. You're riding 900 miles to St. Louis. It is an experiment in human endurance. Water is scarce. You drink from creeks when you find them, hoping the water is clean. Sometimes it's alkaline, tasting of chalk and soap. It dries your mouth out instead of quenching your thirst. Lunch is hardtack, a cracker so dense you have to soak it in water to bite it, and canned beef. The beef is salty and stringy. You eat it cold because lighting a fire takes too much time. You sit on a rock massaging your calves. The silence of the mountains is profound. There are no birds this high up, just the wind and the ticking of cooling metal as the bikes rest. You're a buffalo soldier, a name given with respect by the indigenous tribes because of your hair and your fighting spirit. But in the army you are still segregated. You're commanded by white officers. You're given equipment that is often second-hand. You sleep in separate barracks. But out here on the trail the hierarchy flattens a bit. The mud doesn't care about your rank. The mountain doesn't care about your race. It only cares if you can keep pedaling. Night falls quickly in the mountains. You set up camp. You pitch your shelter half, buttoning it to your neighbours to make a small low tent. The ground is hard and cold. You wrap yourself in your wool blanket. It is scratchy, but it holds the heat. You can hear the sounds of the camp settling down, the cleaning of rifles, the low murmur of conversation. Someone is humming a spiritual, a low mournful sound that drifts into the trees. You check your bike one last time. It is your lifeline. You touch the cold steel of the frame. It is sturdy. It will hold. You close your eyes. Your legs twitch, the muscles still firing, remembering the motion of the pedals. You dream of flat roads. You dream of pavement. But tomorrow, there is only more gravel. Now, let the mountains fade. The crisp air softens, becomes heavier, damper. The smell of pine is replaced by the smell of wet earth and cordite. We are jumping forward again. It is 1918. You're in France. You're in a trench. Congratulations. You're a member of the 369th Infantry Regiment, the Harlem Hellfighters. You have travelled from the dance halls of New York to the mud of the Western Front. The first thing you notice is the mud. It isn't like the mud in Montana. This mud is alive. It sucks at your boots. It coats your uniform. It gets into your food. It is a mixture of rain, earth, and the destruction of war. You're standing on a duckboard, a wooden slat walkway at the bottom of the trench, trying to keep your feet dry. Trench foot is a real threat. If your feet stay wet too long, the skin dies, so you change your socks. It is a ritual. You take off your boots, dry your feet with a rough towel, put on dry socks, and put the wet ones under your shirt against your skin to dry them with your body heat. The noise here is constant, a low rumble of artillery in the distance, like a thunderstorm that never breaks. But you get used to it. It becomes background noise, a lullaby of high explosives. You're wearing a French helmet, carrying a French rifle. Why? Because the American army didn't want to fight alongside you. They loaned your regiment to the French army. You wear the American uniform, but your gear is foreign. It is a strange, hybrid existence. You are holding a Chauchet, a French light machine gun. It is a notoriously temperamental weapon. It has a magazine shaped like a half-moon that is open on the side, allowing mud to get in. If it jams, you're defenseless, so you spend hours cleaning it. You disassemble it, wiping every spring, every pin with an oily rag. You treat it with more care than you treat yourself. The smell of the trench is distinct. It smells of unwashed bodies, chloride of lime, used to sanitize the latrines, and stale tobacco. You're smoking a cigarette, shielding the ember with your hand so the enemy snipers don't see the glow. But amidst the grim reality, there is music. Your regiment has the best band in the entire army, led by James Reese Europe. When you aren't on the front line, the band plays. They play ragtime, they play jazz. It is a sound that Europe has never heard before. It is syncopated, wild, alive. The French soldiers gather around, their jaws dropping. The music cuts through the gloom of the war. It reminds you of Harlem. It reminds you of the rent parties and the crowded streets. But now you are on watch. You stand on the fire step, peering over the parapet into no man's land. It is a landscape of craters and barbed wire illuminated by the occasional flare that goes up like a ghostly firework, casting long dancing shadows. You are listening. You are listening for the snip-snip of wire cutters, the sound of an enemy raiding party trying to breach the wire. You are listening for the soft thump of a gas shell being fired. Gas is the invisible enemy. You have a gas mask in a canvas bag strapped to your chest. It is uncomfortable, hot, and smells of rubber and charcoal. If the alarm sounds, a clanging bell or a wooden rattle, you have 6 seconds to get it on. You practice this drill until you can do it in your sleep. Hold your breath. Pull the mask out, shove your chin in, pull the straps over your head, blow out to clear the air. Survival here is about discipline. It is about keeping your head down. It is about trusting the man next to you. And the men next to you are brothers. You have trained together in upstate New York, endured the ridicule, endured the doubts of officers who said you couldn't fight. And now, you're spending more time in the trenches than any other American unit. 191 days. You never lose a foot of ground. You never lose a man to capture. You eat your rations cold. Corned beef, hard biscuits, maybe some chocolate if a care package came through. You share everything. If you have a dry pair of socks and your buddy doesn't, you trade. The rats are huge. They scurry along the trench floor, bold and fearless. You ignore them. They are just another part of the ecosystem. As dawn approaches, the stand to begins. Every man is on the fire step, rifle ready, bayonet fixed. This is the most dangerous time when attacks usually come. The sky turns grey, then pale blue. The mist rises off the fields. You wait. Your hands are cold on the metal of your rifle. Your breath steams. Nothing happens. The sun rises. The danger passes for the moment. You step down. You lean against the trench wall, closing your eyes. You're exhausted, but you are proud. You are a hellfighter. The French call you men of bronze. You think about home. You think about the paradox of fighting for democracy abroad while your family back in Harlem can't vote, can't eat at certain restaurants, can't live in certain neighborhoods. It is a heavy thought to carry into battle. But you fight anyway. You fight to prove them wrong. You fight for the right to demand more when you get back. As you drift into a light doze, the sounds of the trench, the murmuring voices, the distant thud of a shell, the scratching of a rat blend into a rhythm. It is the rhythm of survival. You have survived the swamps. You have survived the fire. You have survived the mountain pass. And now you are surviving the war. Let the mud of France fade. Let the grey sky dissolve. We are moving again, slipping through the currents of time to a place that is quieter, but no less demanding. We're going to the coast, to the water, to a job that requires lungs of steel and nerves of ice. The artillery fire of the Western Front fades into a different kind of roar, the crashing of waves against a rocky shore. You open your eyes. It is 1820. You're on the coast of Nantucket, Massachusetts. The air is salty, cold, and thick with fog. Congratulations. You are a whaler, and not just any whaler. You are a harpooner. In the hierarchy of the ship, you are royalty. But royalty here means you have the most dangerous job in the ocean. The ship you are on is a wooden cathedral of oil and oak. It smells of rendered blubber, tar, and wet rope. It creaks constantly, a groaning complaint against the sea. You sleep in the forecastle, a cramped triangular room at the front of the ship. It is dark, damp, and crowded. Hammocks swing inches apart. You can hear the breathing of 20 other men, black, white, Native American, Cape Verdean. On land, you might be separated by laws and customs. Here, you're separated only by skill. Your day starts before sunrise. The cry goes up from the masthead. There she blows! Adrenaline spikes. You're out of your hammock in seconds. You grab your harpoon. It is heavy. The iron head razor sharp. You check the line. Hundreds of feet of hemp rope coiled perfectly in a tub. If there is a single knot, a single tangle, that rope could snap tight around a man's leg and drag him to the bottom of the sea in the blink of an eye. You lower the whaleboat into the water. It is a fragile shell of cedar, barely 20 feet long. You and 5 other men climb in. You take the front position. You are the harpooner. You set the pace. You row. The ocean is vast, grey and indifferent. The waves lift the boat and drop it, lift and drop. Your muscles burn. You row for hours, chasing the spout of mist on the horizon. When you get close, the silence is intense. The mate at the steering oar signals for quiet. You ship your oars. You stand up in the bow of the rocking boat. The only thing keeping you from falling into the freezing Atlantic is your balance. You see the whale. It is a sperm whale, a leviathan 60 feet long. Its skin is scarred and grey. It looks like a floating island. It breathes, a massive exhalation that sprays mist into the air. The smell is potent, fishy and oily. You brace your knee against the thigh-board. You lift the harpoon. You wait for the perfect moment when the back arches. You throw. The iron strikes. The whale erupts. The water churns white. The line screams out of the tub, smoking from the friction. The boat lurches forward as the whale dives, towing you on a Nantucket sleigh ride. You are moving at 20 miles an hour, skipping over the waves, tethered to a creature that could crush you with a flick of its tail. This is the moment of truth. If the whale turns, if it attacks the boat, you are dead. Men have been smashed to pulp, bitten in half, or drowned in the tangle of ropes. You hold on. You pray the line holds. You pray the boat holds. Eventually the whale tires. It surfaces, exhausted. The mate comes forward with a lance to finish it. It is a bloody, brutal business, but it is your livelihood. Processing the whale is harder than catching it. You tow the carcass back to the ship. You spend the next 2 days stripping the blubber, boiling it in massive iron tripots on the deck. The fire roars day and night. The smoke is black and greasy. You're covered in oil from head to toe. You slip on the deck. You eat your meals with oily hands. Even the water tastes like oil. But here, you are a man of substance. As a black harpooner, you earn a larger share of the profits than a white greenhorn. You have authority. When you speak, men listen. In New Bedford or Nantucket, you can own property. You can walk down the street with your head high. Frederick Douglass found freedom in these shipyards. Paul Cuff became one of the wealthiest men in America sailing these waters. You look out at the horizon. The sea is endless. It is a hard master, but it is a fair one. It doesn't care about your history. It only cares if you can stand in the bow and throw the iron. You survive the voyage. It lasts 3 years. You return home with money in your pocket and stories that no landlocked man would believe. But let's leave the sea now. The salt spray dries on your skin, replaced by the dry, dusty heat of a different kind of frontier. We are going to the 1930s. We are going to the road. You're in a car. It's a Buick, sturdy and reliable. The seats are plush. The engine hums. You're driving south, crossing the Mason-Dixon line. Congratulations. You're a traveller in the era of Jim Crow. You have a car which is a symbol of freedom, but you're driving through a landscape of hidden traps. The first thing you notice is the tension in your shoulders. You're gripping the steering wheel too tight. You're watching the rearview mirror constantly. A police car behind you isn't protection, it's a threat. You make sure you're driving exactly the speed limit. Not 1 mile over, not 1 mile under. You're hungry. You see a diner with a bright neon sign. It looks inviting, but you don't stop. You know better. You keep driving until you find a grocery store where you can buy bologna and bread to eat in the car. You need gas. You pull into a station. The attendant comes out. He stares at you. He takes his time. You ask for 5 gallons. He fills it, but he doesn't wash your windshield. He doesn't smile. You pay him, counting the change carefully. You don't look him in the eye too long. You get back in the car. The sun is setting. This is the dangerous time. Sundown towns are real. Signs at the city limits read, "Nigger, don't let the sun set on you here." You have to find a place to sleep. You reach into the glove compartment and pull out a small green book, the Negro Motorist Green Book. It is your Bible. It is your survival guide. You flip through the pages. Alabama, Georgia, Mississippi. You're looking for a safe harbour, a boarding house run by a widow, a hotel that welcomes coloured guests, a garage where a mechanic won't sabotage your engine. You find an address in the next town, Mrs. Johnson's tourist home. You drive there, your heart beating a little faster as you enter the city limits. You watch the sidewalks. You watch the shadows. You find the house. It is modest, well kept. A light burns on the porch. You knock. The door opens. An older woman smiles at you. "Come in," she says. "You're safe here." The relief is physical. You step inside. The house smells of lemon polish and baking bread. You're shown to a clean room with a quilt on the bed. You can wash the dust of the road off your face. You can sleep without one eye open. The Green Book wasn't just a travel guide. It was a map of a parallel America. An America of black businesses, black resilience, black hospitality. It was a network of safety woven into a hostile landscape. Without it, a road trip could end in a jail cell or a lynching. You sleep deeply that night, comforted by the knowledge that you are among friends. But survival isn't always about hiding or running. Sometimes it's about standing still and refusing to move. We're jumping forward one last time in this sequence. It is 1955. You're in Montgomery, Alabama. You're tired. You've worked all day as a seamstress, bending over fabric, your eyes straining in the dim light. Your feet ache. You wait for the bus. It arrives. You pay your fare at the front, then get off and board at the back, as is the rule. You find a seat in the coloured section. You sit down. You exhale. The bus fills up. White passengers board. The driver, a man with a hard face, turns around. He orders you and 3 others to stand up so a white man can sit. The others move. You don't. It isn't a planned protest. It isn't a political strategy. It is simply exhaustion. It is the weight of 1,000 indignities pressing down on you until you can't take one more. It is the feeling of the seat beneath you, a small square of space that you paid for, that you earned. "Are you going to stand up?" the driver asks. "No," you say. The word is quiet. It isn't a shout, but it rings like a bell. The police are called. You are arrested. You are fingerprinted. You are jailed. But you survived the moment. You survived the fear. And in doing so, you ignited a fire that will burn down the walls of segregation. You sit in the jail cell. It is cold. It smells of bleach and despair. But you feel strangely light. You feel free. As you drift off to sleep on the hard cot, you realize that survival is a shapeshifter. It is the hammer of the Zimbabwe builder. It is the silence of the runaway. It is the endurance of the cowboy. It is the vigilance of the traveller. And it is the quiet no of the seamstress. They are all connected. They are all threads in the same tapestry. A tapestry woven from grit, from intelligence, from an unshakable belief in one's own humanity. You wouldn't survive a day in their shoes without their knowledge. But now, maybe you understand a little bit of what it took. The cell fades, the bus fades, the road fades. You're back in your own bed. The fan is humming. The room is safe. But the stories remain. They are in the walls. They are in the ground. They are in the air you breathe. Sleep well. The history is holding you up. We aren't done yet. The tapestry of survival is vast, and there are threads we haven't pulled. Threads that lead to places colder than the Montana mountains and hotter than the Texas plains. We're going north again, but this time we're leaving the land entirely. We're going to the ice. The year is 1909. You're standing at the edge of the world. You are Matthew Henson. Congratulations. You're about to become the first man to stand on the North Pole. But the history books will argue about this for decades. They will put the white man, Robert Peary, in the front of the photo. But you know the truth. You were the one breaking the trail. The temperature is 50 degrees below zero. That's a number that doesn't make sense until you feel it. It feels like the air has turned into glass. Every breath you take freezes the moisture in your nose instantly. Your eyelashes are heavy with ice. If you touch bare metal, your skin will bond to it and tear off when you pull away. You're driving a dog sled. You have a team of 8 Inuit dogs, strong, wild creatures that respect only strength. You have to shout commands over the howling wind. Hook! Hook! You crack the whip, not to hit them, but to snap it in the air, a sound like a gunshot that keeps them moving. The ice under your runners isn't flat. It is a chaos of pressure ridges, walls of jagged ice pushed up by the ocean currents below. You have to hack a path through them with a pickaxe. It is grueling work. You swing the axe, shattering the ice, sweating inside your furs. Then you have to push the heavy sled, laden with hundreds of pounds of supplies, over the ridge. You do this 10, 20 times a day. And then there are the leads. These are cracks in the ice where the black Arctic Ocean opens up. They can be inches wide or miles wide. If you fall in, you die. The water is so cold it stops your heart in minutes. Even if you get out, you will freeze to death before you can dry off. You come to a lead that is too wide to jump. You have to wait. You build an igloo. Building an igloo is an engineering marvel. You cut blocks of hard-packed snow with a saw. You arrange them in a spiral, leaning them inward. You work fast because the wind is killing you. Once the dome is closed, you crawl inside. You light a small seal oil lamp. The temperature rises just enough to keep you alive. The snow walls insulate you from the wind. It is quiet inside, a muffled white silence. You eat pemmican, a dense brick of dried meat and fat. It tastes like grease, but it burns hot in your body. You melt snow for water. You sleep in your furs, listening to the ice groan and shift beneath you. You are sleeping on top of an ocean. You are the navigator. You learned the Inuit language. You learned how to build the sleds, how to drive the dogs, how to hunt walrus. Peary couldn't do these things. He relied on you. He lost his toes to frostbite years ago. You are the legs of the expedition. When you finally reach the pole, there is no flag waiting for you. There is no signpost, just endless shifting ice. You calculate the position with a sextant, you check the sun, you double-check. I think I'm the first man to sit on top of the world, you say. You plant the flag, you take a photo. But the journey back is just as dangerous. The ice is breaking up with the coming spring. You have to race the melting season. You survive. You return to civilization. And while Peary is feted as a hero, given medals and promotions, you are quietly ignored. You take a job as a clerk in a customs house. You park cars, you sweep floors. But you know. You know what it feels like to stand where all lines of longitude meet. You know the silence of the pole. You know that you conquered the ice not with brute force, but with skill, patience, and the wisdom of the Inuit people you befriended. Survival here meant mastering a world that wanted to freeze you solid. It meant being the best, even if no one gave you credit. Let the ice melt. Let the white world fade. We are going to a place of noise, heat, and iron. We are going to Birmingham, Alabama. The year is 1890. You are in a prison mine. This is the darkest chapter of the post-Civil War South. Slavery ended, yes. But then came the Black Codes and the convict leasing system. Congratulations. You have been arrested for vagrancy, which means standing on a street corner without a job, or maybe loitering, or maybe you just looked a sheriff in the eye. You couldn't pay the fine, so the county leased you to a coal company. You're a slave again, but this time there is no owner to protect his investment. If a slave died, the owner lost money. If a convict dies, the company just leases another one. You are disposable. You wake up in a barracks that is little more than a wooden cage. It is filthy. Vermin are everywhere. You're shackled to the man next to you. You eat a breakfast of cornbread that is full of weevils and pot liquor, the greasy water left over from boiling greens. You march to the mine. It is a hole in the ground, black and gaping. You descend. The air gets hot and stale. You're hundreds of feet underground. The only light comes from the small oil lamp on your cap. Your job is to load coal. You have a quota, 4 tons a day. If you don't meet it, you get whipped. The whipping boss is a man chosen for his cruelty. He uses a leather strap dipped in sand and salt. The scars on your back never heal. They just layer over each other. You swing the pick. The coal dust fills the air. It is explosive. One spark from a pick hitting a rock could ignite the methane gas, fire damp, and blow the mine apart. You work in constant fear of the explosion, or the cave-in, or the black damp, carbon dioxide that suffocates you silently. You breathe the dust. It coats your lungs. You cough up black phlegm. Miner's asthma, they call it. It's a slow death sentence. Water is scarce underground. You drink from puddles on the floor, water that is contaminated with coal dust and human waste. Dysentery is rampant. Men die of dehydration in the damp dark. There is no escape. The guards are armed with shotguns. The dogs are trained to track. If you run, they will kill you. If you refuse to work, they will torture you. They have sweat boxes, coffins standing upright in the sun where they lock men for days without water. You survive by becoming numb. You shut down your mind. You focus only on the rhythm of the pick. Clang, clang, clang. You bond with the men on your chain gang. You sing work songs to keep the pace, low mournful tunes that echo in the tunnels. Waterboy. Chain gang blues. These aren't just songs. They are cries for help. This system built the industrial wealth of the New South. The coal you dig fuels the steel mills of Birmingham, the Pittsburgh of the South. It builds the railroads, it powers the cities, and it is built on your bones. You survive your sentence. Maybe it was 6 months. Maybe it was a year. You emerge from the mine, blinking in the sunlight, a broken man. Your health is ruined. You have no money, but you are free. You walk away from the mine, vowing never to go back. You head north, joining the flood of people leaving the South. You're looking for a place where a man isn't sold for a misdemeanor. Let the coal dust settle. Let the darkness of the mine recede. We're going to a place of light, but a light that burns. We are going to Florida. The year is 1920. You're in Ocoee. Congratulations. You are a black landowner. You have an orange grove. You have a home. You have registered to vote. November 2nd. Election day. You put on your best suit. You walk to the polling place. You know the risks. The Ku Klux Klan marched through town last night, warning black people to stay away. But you are an American. You have the right. You get to the poll. White men with guns are blocking the door. They tell you to go home. They shove you. You don't fight back physically, but you don't leave. You stand your ground. You demand your ballot. This isn't over, one of them says. You go home. You sit on your porch, shotgun across your knees. You watch the sun go down. You know what's coming. It starts with a single shot, then a volley. A mob surrounds the home of July Perry, a leader in the community who tried to vote. They burn him out. They lynch him. Then they come for the rest of the town. It is a pogrom. They set fire to the black neighborhood. Houses, churches, schools. The orange groves are torched, the sweet smell of burning fruit mixing with the acrid smoke of destruction. You run. You grab your wife, your children. You flee into the swamps. You leave behind the land you bought, the trees you planted, the future you built. You become a refugee in your own country. You hide in the cypress strands for days. You watch the glow of your town burning in the distance. You hear the screams. You survive. You make it to Apopka or Orlando, or maybe you keep going north. You never talk about the land you lost. It's too painful, but you remember. Years later, you tell your grandchildren. We had something, you say, and they took it, but they didn't take us. Survival here is about memory. It is about holding on to the truth when the official history tries to erase it. For decades, the Ocoee massacre was buried. No one talked about it. But the survivors remembered. They passed the story down like a secret heirloom. You close your eyes in your safe modern room. You think about the cold of the North Pole, the darkness of the mine, the fire of Ocoee. These aren't just stories of suffering. They are stories of impossible strength. They are the reason you are here. Because someone, somewhere, decided to keep breathing when the world told them to stop. Sleep now, the night is quiet. But the history is loud. The smoke from Ocoee clears, drifting away into the humid Florida night. We are moving again, leaving the swamps and the groves behind. We are going to a place where the struggle for survival is fought not with guns, but with paper, ink, and the sheer audacity of intellect. The year is 1895. You're in Memphis, Tennessee. You're standing in a small office on Beale Street. The air smells of printer's ink and dust. Congratulations. You are Ida B. Wells, or rather you are walking in her shoes. You are a journalist in the most dangerous city in America for a black woman with a voice. Your office is the headquarters of the Memphis Free Speech. You have a printing press, a heavy cast-iron machine that clanks and hisses like a steam engine. It is your weapon. You didn't start out trying to be a revolutionary. You were a teacher. You liked nice clothes. You liked order. But then your friends were lynched. 3 men, Thomas Moss, Calvin McDowell and Will Stewart, owned the People's Grocery. They were successful. They were taking business away from a white competitor, so a mob took them out of jail and shot them. That was the moment survival stopped being about staying alive and started being about staying true. You sit at your desk. It is late. The street outside is quiet, but you know they are watching. You have received threats. Letters slipped under your door telling you to leave town or die. You dip your pen in the inkwell. You are writing an editorial. You aren't writing about weather or social events. You are writing about lynching. You are dismantling the lie that black men are lynched because they assault white women. You are proving, with data, with facts, with cold, hard logic, that lynching is a tool of economic terror. It is used to crush black success. Writing this is a death sentence. You know it. You keep a pistol in your purse. You told a friend once, "I felt that one had better die fighting against injustice than to die like a dog or a rat in a trap." The printing press starts up. Clack, clack, clack. It is the heartbeat of the resistance. The paper comes out wet with ink. You fold it. You stack it. Tomorrow this paper will be in the hands of thousands. It will make people angry. It will make people think. You leave the office. The night air is heavy. You walk quickly, your hand inside your purse, gripping the handle of the pistol. Every shadow looks like a man with a rope. Every car that slows down makes your heart stop. But you survive the walk home. You survive the night. A few months later, you are out of town, travelling in New York. That is when they strike. A mob destroys your office. They smash the printing press. They burn the building. They leave a note saying that if you ever return to Memphis, they will kill you. You lost your business, you lost your home, but you saved your voice. You continue to write from exile. You tour England, speaking to crowds about the horrors of the American South. You become the most famous black woman in the world. Survival here wasn't about staying in one place. It was about refusing to be silenced. It was about realizing that the truth is harder to kill than a person. Let the ink dry. Let the press fall silent. We are moving again, jumping forward to a different kind of war. The year is 1943. You're in the sky over Italy. Congratulations. You're a Tuskegee airman. You're a pilot in the 302nd Fighter Group. You're flying a P-51 Mustang. It is a sleek, silver machine with a red tail. It is the fastest thing you have ever touched. The engine roars in front of you, a vibration that rattles your teeth. You're at 20,000 feet. The air is thin and cold. You're wearing an oxygen mask. It smells of rubber and your own stale breath. Your flight suit is thick, lined with sheepskin, but you're still cold. The cockpit isn't pressurized. Your job is to protect the bombers. The B-17s and B-24s are lumbering giants, slow and vulnerable. They are carrying the war to Germany, and the German Luftwaffe is waiting for them. You see them coming out of the sun, Messerschmitt Bf-109s, fast, deadly fighters. "Bandits at 3 o'clock high," someone yells over the radio. You bank your plane. The G-force slams you into your seat. Your vision greys out for a second. You fight to stay conscious. This is a physical battle as much as a tactical one. You are wrestling a machine that weighs 4 tons through the sky at 400 miles per hour. The dogfight is chaos. Tracers zip past your canopy. Green streaks of light that mean death. You see a bomber take a hit, smoke pouring from its engine. You dive, placing your plane between the bomber and the German fighter. This is your reputation. The Red Tails. You stay with the bombers. Other fighter groups chase glory, abandoning the bombers to shoot down Germans. You stay. You protect. The bomber crews call you Red Tail Angels. You fire your guns. The plane shudders. You see pieces fly off the enemy fighter. He spirals down, trailing smoke. You pull up. You check your fuel. You check your ammo. You're sweating, soaked through your heavy suit. Your hands are cramping on the stick. You land back at the base in Ramitelli, Italy. It is a dusty airstrip cut into a farm field. You climb out of the cockpit. Your legs are shaky. You walk to the debriefing hut. The white bomber pilots are there. They look at you with a mixture of awe and confusion. They have been told their whole lives that black men lack the intelligence, the reflexes, the courage to fly. You just saved their lives. But the survival challenge doesn't end when you land. You go back to your segregated barracks. You eat in a segregated mess hall. You're fighting for a country that treats German prisoners of war better than it treats you. You go into town. You see a sign on a restaurant, whites only. You're an officer in the United States Army Air Forces. You have wings on your chest, and you can't buy a sandwich. The cognitive dissonance is deafening. You're a hero in the sky and a second-class citizen on the ground. But you fly anyway. You fly because up there at 20,000 feet the laws of Jim Crow don't apply. Gravity is the only law, and you have mastered it. Let the roar of the Mustang fade. Let the red tail disappear into the clouds. We're going to the ground now, to the city, to the heart of the struggle. The year is 1968. You're in Memphis again. But this time, you aren't a journalist. You're a sanitation worker. Congratulations. You're invisible. You pick up the garbage of a city that refuses to look at you. Your day starts at 4 a.m. It is raining. It is always raining in Memphis in February. You go to the depot. You wait to see if you will be picked for a crew. There is no guaranteed work. If the foreman doesn't like your face today, you don't eat. The trucks are old, dangerous. The compactors are faulty. Two of your friends, Ethel Cole and Robert Walker, were crushed to death inside one of these trucks just last week. They sought shelter from the rain in the back of the truck, and a short circuit triggered the compactor. There was no safety switch. That was the breaking point. You are on strike. You are marching down Beale Street. You are wearing your Sunday best, a suit, a tie, a hat. You are carrying a sign, 4 words. I am a man. It isn't a request. It is a declaration. The police are lining the street. They have batons, they have tear gas, they have mace. You see the tanks of the National Guard rolling in, tanks in an American city pointed at garbage men. You keep walking. The fear is there, tight in your stomach. You know what happened in Birmingham. You know what happened in Selma. You know that a baton to the head can kill you. But you also know that you can't go back to the way it was. You can't go back to earning 65 cents an hour. You can't go back to having no shower at the depot, having to walk home smelling of other people's filth. Dr. King is coming to town. He is going to march with you. That gives you hope. But then, the unthinkable happens. April 4th, a shot rings. Out at the Lorraine Motel. The news spreads through the city like a shockwave. King is dead. The city explodes. Riots. Fires. Sirens. You stay in your home, lights off, listening to the sound of a dream dying. But the strike doesn't end. You go back to the line. You march past the soldiers with their bayonets. You march past the tanks. You march until the city breaks. Until they recognize your union. Until they raise your pay. You win. But the cost is etched into your soul. You survived the garbage truck. You survived the police. You survived the grief. You look at your hands. They are calloused, scarred. They are the hands of a man who cleans up the world. And now the world knows who you are. Let the picket signs fall. Let the chanting fade. We are going further back now, to a time before the strikes, before the planes, before the press. We are going to the sea, but not as whalers, as cargo. The year is 1780. You are in the hold of a ship. We have avoided this part of the story because it is too painful, but we cannot talk about survival without talking about the middle passage. Congratulations, you are alive. That is the only good news. You are lying in the dark. You cannot move. You're chained to the person next to you. The space is so cramped you cannot sit up. You're lying on bare wood. The smell is beyond description. It is the smell of hundreds of people trapped in a windowless room for weeks. It is the smell of sickness, of waste, of death. The air is thick, hot, suffocating. You gasp for breath, but every inhale burns. The ship pitches and rolls. You slide against the person next to you. You can feel their bones. You can feel their fear. You don't speak their language. They are from a different village, a different tribe. But you communicate in the language of survival. A squeeze of the hand, a shared glance in the dim light when the hatch opens. Food is a bucket of mush lowered down. You eat with your hands. You have to fight for it sometimes, but mostly you share. Because if the person next to you dies, you are chained to a corpse. Disease sweeps through the hold, dysentery, smallpox. You see people fading away. Their eyes go dull. They stop moving. The sailors come down, cover their noses with handkerchiefs, unlock the shackles, and drag the bodies up to the deck. You hear the splash as they are thrown overboard. The sharks follow the ships. You know this. You survive by going somewhere else in your mind. You remember the village, the sound of the drum, the taste of yams. You hold on to these memories like a lifeline. You refuse to let the darkness take your mind. Some people choose not to survive. They stop eating. They will themselves to die. It is an act of resistance, a way to deny the captors their profit. But you choose to live. You choose to endure the unendurable. You tell yourself that no matter where this ship takes you, you will still be you. You survive the voyage. You emerge into the blinding light of a new world. You're sold, you're renamed, you're put to work. But you're still here. You carry the ocean in your blood. You carry the memory of the ones who didn't make it, and you plant that memory in the soil of this strange land. As you drift off to sleep, safe in your bed, you feel the weight of that survival. It is heavy, but it is also strong. It is the foundation of everything that came after. The cowboy, the builder, the pilot, the journalist. They are all echoes of that first survival. Sleep now. The ocean is calm, the chains are broken. The smell of the ocean fades, replaced by the scent of burning pine and fresh earth. We are moving forward in time, but deeper into the wilderness. The year is 1866. You're in the American West, but you aren't a cowboy this time. You're something arguably tougher. Congratulations. You're an exoduster. You're standing on the bank of the Mississippi River, waiting for a steamboat. Behind you is the South, a land of broken promises and rising violence. Ahead of you is Kansas. They say Kansas is the promised land. They say a man can own land there, vote there, breathe there. You have your whole life packed into a single wagon. A few pots, a Bible, a bag of seeds, and your children. You look at their faces. They are thin, eyes wide with uncertainty. You're gambling everything on a rumour. The steamboat arrives. It is crowded, noisy, and expensive. You pay the fare with money you saved for years, hiding it under floorboards, stitching it into the hem of your coat. The journey upriver is slow. You sleep on the deck, exposed to the wind and rain. You watch the shore glide by. Trees, towns, fields. It looks peaceful, but you know better. The river has swallowed many dreams. You arrive in St. Louis, then take a train to Kansas. The landscape changes. The trees disappear. The sky opens up until it feels like it might swallow you whole. This is the Great Plains. It is vast, empty, and terrifying. You get off the train in Nicodemus, Kansas. It is one of the few all-black towns in the West. You expect a bustling city. Instead, you see dugouts, holes carved into the side of a hill with a door on the front. There are no buildings, no lumber, just earth and grass. Your heart sinks. This is the promised land? A hole in the ground? But then a woman walks out of one of the dugouts. She smiles. She hands you a cup of water. "Welcome home," she says. "Survival here is about adaptation. You have to learn to live without wood. You burn buffalo chips, dried dung for fuel. You build your house out of sod, bricks made of grass and dirt. You cut them from the prairie with a special plough, stack them like masonry. The sod house is dark. It is damp. When it rains, the roof leaks mud. Snakes sometimes fall from the ceiling onto your bed. But it is warm in the winter and cool in the summer, and most importantly, it is yours. Farming the prairie is a war. The soil is tough, matted with roots that have grown for thousands of years. Your plough breaks. Your back breaks. You plant corn, wheat, potatoes. You pray for rain. Sometimes the rain doesn't come. The wind blows the topsoil away in great choking clouds. Dust pneumonia fills your lungs. Sometimes the locusts come, a cloud on the horizon that blocks out the sun. Millions of them. They eat everything. The crops, the clothes on the line, the handle of your hoe. They strip the land bare in hours. You watch your year's work vanish into the bellies of insects. But you don't leave. You replant. You dig deeper. You build a community, a church made of sod, a school made of sod. You elect a mayor. You start a baseball team. You hold dances on the packed earth floor. The white settlers in the neighbouring towns look at you with suspicion, sometimes hostility. But they also trade with you. They realise that out here colour matters less than character. If your wagon breaks down in a blizzard, you help each other. If a prairie fire sweeps through, you fight it side by side. You survive the winters that freeze cattle standing up. You survive the summers that bake the ground into concrete. You raise a generation of children who have never known shackles. They ride horses, they shoot rifles, they read books. Nicodemus grows. Wooden buildings replace the dugouts, a hotel, a general store, a newspaper. You walk down the street and for the first time in your life you feel like a citizen, not a subject, not property, a citizen. Survival here was about patience. It was about believing in something you couldn't see yet. It was about turning dirt into a home. Let the wind of the Kansas prairie die down. We are moving again. To a place where the danger isn't nature but the law itself. The year is 1700. You're in New York City. Wait. New York? 1700? Yes. Congratulations. You're an enslaved person in a northern city. We often forget that slavery wasn't just a southern institution. It was everywhere. You work on the docks, or in a wealthy merchant's kitchen, or as a skilled carpenter building the very wall that gives Wall Street its name. You live in a city that is crowded, dirty, and diverse. Dutch, English, indigenous, African. You speak 3 languages, a pidgin mix that allows you to navigate the streets. But the laws here are strict. Black codes govern your every move. You cannot gather in groups larger than 3. You cannot carry a walking stick. It might be a weapon. You cannot be out after dark without a lantern so they can see you. Survival here is about navigating the grey zones. You find moments of freedom in the chaos of the city. You go to the Pinkster Festival. Originally a Dutch holiday, Pentecost, it has been taken over by the black community. For a few days in spring the rules are relaxed. You gather on Pinkster Hill, now City Hall Park. You dance. You elect a king who rules over the festivities. You trade goods. You speak your own languages. You remember who you were before the ships came, but the danger is always there. The fear of a slave revolt haunts the white population. In 1712, that fear becomes reality. A group of enslaved men set fire to a building on Maiden Lane. When the white citizens run to put it out, the rebels attack. The retribution is swift and horrific. The city is locked down. Trials are held. Men are burned at the stake, broken on the wheel. It is a medieval display of violence meant to terrorize you into submission. You survive by keeping your head down. You survive by building secret networks. You know which taverns will serve you a drink in the back room. You know which white indentured servants are sympathetic to your cause. You create a fictive kinship, a family made not of blood but of shared circumstance. You find solace in the African burial ground. Located just outside the city wall, near modern-day Duane Street, it is the only place where you can bury your dead with dignity. You perform rites that connect you to your ancestors. You place shells and beads in the graves. You whisper names that the masters don't know. Survival in colonial New York was a tightrope walk. You were building the city that would become the capital of the world, but the city didn't want you. Yet, you stayed. Your labour is in the stones of Trinity Church. Your skill is in the ships in the harbour. Your DNA is in the bedrock of Manhattan. Let the cobblestones of New York fade. Let the church bells ring out. We are going to a place of silence, a place of secrets. The year is 1830. You're in the Great Dismal Swamp. This isn't the Underground Railroad. This is something else. This is marronage. Congratulations. You are a maroon. You ran away from a plantation in Virginia or North Carolina, but instead of heading north, you headed deep into the swamp. You went where the slave catchers were afraid to go. The Great Dismal Swamp is a vast, tangled wilderness of cypress trees, peat bogs, and black water. It is filled with bears, bobcats, and venomous snakes. The insects are a constant torment, but you are free. You live on an island in the middle of the swamp. You have built a cabin on high ground hidden by dense vegetation. You have a community here. Hundreds, maybe thousands of people living in secret. You have your own economy. You cut cypress shingles and float them out to the edge of the swamp to trade with free black people or sympathetic whites for guns, powder and cloth. You grow corn and potatoes in small hidden patches. You hunt deer and wild hogs. Survival here is about adaptation to an environment that most people consider uninhabitable. You learn to walk on the sponge, the soft, unstable ground of the swamp. You learn to navigate the labyrinth of waterways. You learn which plants cure fevers and which ones are poison. You're constantly vigilant. The militia sometimes sends patrols into the swamp to hunt you, but you know the terrain better than they do. You set traps. You lead them into quicksand. You vanish like ghosts. Living in the swamp changes you. You're no longer a slave. You're a warrior. You carry a musket. You walk with a pride that would get you killed on the plantation. You raise children who have never seen a master. They learn to swim before they can walk. They learn the calls of the swamp birds. They are free-born. The Great Dismal Swamp Maroons created a society that lasted for generations. It was a resistance movement that didn't march or protest. It simply existed. It proved that black people could build a life outside of the system of slavery, right in the heart of the South. You lie down in your cabin. The air is humid, heavy with the scent of moss and decay. The frogs are a deafening chorus, but to you it is the sound of safety. You survive because you chose the hard path. The path of the mosquito and the snake over the path of the whip and the chain. Let the swamp water stillness return. We are going to a place of heat and rhythm. The year is 1900. You are in New Orleans, specifically Storyville. Congratulations, you are a musician in the red light district. You play the cornet. You play in a sporting house, a high-class brothel. The madame pays you well. The guests tip better. You're witnessing the birth of jazz. It isn't called jazz yet. It's hot music. It's ratty music. It's a gumbo of African rhythms, European harmonies, blues and ragtime. You play from 9 p.m. until dawn. The air in the parlour is thick with cigar smoke and perfume. You watch the wealthy white men come in, shedding their respectability at the door. You see the hypocrisy of the city up close. Survival here is about navigating the underworld. You have to know the pimps, the gamblers, the crooked cops. You have to know when to play loud and when to fade into the background. You play with a fervour that comes from desperation. Music is your ticket out. If you are good enough, you might get on a riverboat. You might get to Chicago. You might get recorded. You know a kid named Louis Armstrong. He runs errands for the prostitutes, hauling coal. He listens to the bands. He has a horn he bought with money loaned to him by a Jewish family he works for. You hear him play. He has a sound like sunlight hitting brass. You know he's going to change the world. But tonight, you just have to make it through the set. Your lip is bleeding. Your eyes are burning. But the rhythm takes over. Bap, bap, be bop, it lifts you up. Survival in Storyville meant creating beauty in the midst of vice. It meant turning the pain of your history into a sound so joyful, so complex, that the whole world would eventually have to stop and listen. You pack up your horn as the sun comes up. You walk home through the quiet streets of the French Quarter. You're exhausted, but you have a song in your head, and that song is freedom. As you drift off to sleep, safe in your bed, you realize that survival isn't just about enduring pain. It's about creating something new out of the ashes. It's the sod house on the prairie. It's the maroon community in the swamp. It's the jazz note in the brothel. It is the refusal to let the environment, whether natural or social, define who you are. Sleep now. The music is still playing. The swamp is still whispering. The prairie is still waiting. The brassy notes of New Orleans fade into the humid night, leaving only the chirp of crickets and the distant whistle of a train. We are moving again, leaving the city for the deep country. But this isn't the American South. We are crossing the ocean, back to the continent of origin, but forward in time. The year is 1879. You're in Isandlwana, South Africa. Congratulations. You're a Zulu warrior, and you're about to face the most powerful empire in the world. You wake before dawn. The air is cool on the high veld. You are part of an impi, a regiment of thousands of men. You wear the traditional attire of your unit, cowhide shields patterned black and white, ostrich feathers, and monkey fur kilts. But your primary weapon is the Iklwa, a short stabbing spear designed for close combat. The British are here. They have invaded your land. They have Gatling guns, Martini Henry rifles that can kill from a mile away, and cannons. You have leather shields and iron spears. By all conventional logic, this should be a massacre, but you have something they don't understand: discipline, speed, and the horn of the buffalo. Your king, Tsetchwayo, has given the order. The strategy is ancient and lethal. The chest of the army engages the enemy head-on. The horns, two fast-moving flanks, race around the sides to encircle them. The loins, the reserves, wait behind, ready to exploit any weakness. You're in the left horn. You have to run. You run barefoot over rocky ground, moving faster than horses can navigate the terrain. You stay low, using the tall grass and the contours of the land to hide your numbers. The British have made a mistake. They are overconfident. They have split their forces. They haven't fortified their camp. They see you as a primitive mob. They don't see the machine. The battle begins. The British rifles open fire. The sound is deafening. Men around you fall, their bodies torn apart by heavy lead bullets. But you don't stop. You chant as you run, a deep rhythmic sound that terrifies the enemy. Usuthu, Usuthu. You close the distance. The British line begins to falter. Their guns jam from overheating. The smoke obscures their vision, and then you are on them. The combat is brutal, intimate. It is spear against bayonet. You fight for your home, your king, your cattle. You overwhelm them with sheer numbers and ferocity. The British line breaks. It becomes a rout. By afternoon, the field is silent. You have won. You have defeated a modern European army with Iron Age weapons. It is one of the greatest shocks in military history, but survival after the battle is complicated. You have captured rifles, but you don't have ammunition factories. You have won the day, but the Empire will return with more men, more guns, more vengeance. You sit on the hillside, cleaning your spear. You're exhausted, you're wounded, but you're proud. You showed the world that technology isn't everything, that a people united, disciplined, and brave can stand against giants. However, the war isn't over. The British burn your capital, Ulundi. They capture your king. The Zulu kingdom is dismantled. You return to your village, but life has changed. You are now a subject of the crown. Survival now means adapting to a new kind of rule. You have to pay hut taxes in British coin, which means you have to work for the British. You go from warrior to labourer. It is a bitter pill. But you keep the stories. You tell your children about the day the sun went dark at Isandlwana. There was a partial solar eclipse during the battle. You tell them about the horn of the buffalo. You plant the seed of resistance that will grow for generations, eventually blossoming into the struggle against apartheid. Let the veld fade. Let the chanting die down. We are moving to a place where the war is silent, but just as deadly. The year is 1910. You're in Macon, Georgia. Congratulations. You're a sharecropper. This is slavery by another name. Debt peonage. You live in a shack on land that belongs to a white planter. He provides the seed, the tools, the mule. You provide the labour. At the end of the year, you split the harvest. It sounds fair on paper, but the math is rigged. You buy your food and clothes from the planter's store on credit. The prices are inflated. The interest rates are usurious. When harvest time comes, the planter settles up. He looks at his ledger. Well, looks like you had a good crop, he says. But after you pay for the seed, the mule rental, the food, the medicine, you still owe me $50. You can't leave. Leaving while owing a debt is a crime. The sheriff will arrest you and you'll end up on a chain gang, remember the mine. So you sign a contract for another year, and another, and another. You wake up before the sun. You work until you can't see your hand in front of your face. Your whole family works. Your children miss school to pick cotton. Their hands are pricked and bleeding from the bowls. Survival here is about the garden, the truck patch, the small plot of land behind your shack where you grow vegetables for yourself. Collard greens, okra, sweet potatoes, black-eyed peas. This is the only food you don't have to buy on credit. It is your lifeline. You raise chickens. You go fishing in the creek on Sundays. You hunt possum and raccoon. You learn to make a meal out of nothing, making a way out of no way. You find joy in the church. Sunday morning is the only time you feel like a person. You put on your clean clothes. You sing. The preacher talks about Moses leading his people out of Egypt. You know he's talking about you, but you're also plotting. You hear whispers about jobs in the north, factories in Detroit, steel mills in Pittsburgh. They pay cash. They don't have ledgers. One night you make a decision. You pack your meagre belongings. You don't tell the planter. You don't tell the neighbours. You wait for a moonless night. You walk to the train station, but not the one in town. You walk 10 miles to the next depot where they don't know you. You buy a ticket with the few dollars you've hidden in a tin can under the floorboards. You get on the train. You sit in the segregated car. As the train pulls away, you watch the fields of cotton disappear. You're leaving behind the debt. You're leaving behind the Jim Crow laws. You're part of the Great Migration. You arrive in Chicago. It is cold. It is crowded. But you have a job. You get a paycheck every Friday. You can buy whatever you want. You're still poor, but you aren't owned. Survival here was about the long game. It was about enduring the exploitation until you could find the crack in the wall and slip through. Let the train whistle blow. Let the cotton fields recede. We are going to a place of intellect and innovation. The year is 1940. You are in Washington, D.C. Congratulations. You are a human computer. You are working for the precursor to NASA. You are a black woman with a degree in mathematics. You are brilliant. You can calculate trajectories for aircraft, analyze wind tunnel data, solve differential equations in your head. But you work in a segregated office, the West Area computers. You have a sign on your table, coloured computers. You have to walk half a mile to use the coloured bathroom. You can't eat in the cafeteria with the white engineers. The work is grueling. You're doing the math that will help win World War II. You're calculating drag coefficients, lift ratios. Your eyes strain from reading tiny numbers on slide rules and spreadsheets. One mistake could mean a plane crash. One mistake could cost lives. You're constantly underestimated. The white male engineers treat you like a secretary. They hand you their rough work and expect you to clean it up. But you do more than that. You find their errors. You improve their designs. You ask questions they hadn't thought of. You have to be perfect. You have to be twice as good to get half as far. That is the mantra. Survival here is about excellence. It is about making yourself indispensable. It is about forcing them to respect your mind even if they don't respect your humanity. You navigate the politics of the office. You learn which white supervisors are fair and which ones are bigots. You build a network of support with the other black women. You share lunch, you carpool, you help each other with childcare. And then the space race begins. The stakes get higher. They need you. They need your brain to put a man in orbit. John Glenn says, get the girl to check the numbers. He means Katherine Johnson. He trusts her math more than the new electronic computers. You do the math. You calculate the trajectory. The rocket launches. It orbits the Earth. It comes back safely. You watch it on a black and white TV. You know that without you, it wouldn't have happened. You don't get the parade. You don't get the magazine cover. But you know. Survival here meant breaking the glass ceiling with a slide rule. It meant proving that intelligence has no colour. As you drift off to sleep, you think about the warrior, the sharecropper, the mathematician. They all fought wars, one with a spear, one with a plough, one with a pencil. They all faced systems designed to crush them. The British Empire, the sharecropping system, Jim Crow segregation, and they all found a way to win. Not always a total victory, not always a happy ending, but a survival, a continuation. The spear is broken, but the story remains. The debt is unpaid, but the family moved north. The name was left off the report, but the rocket flew. Sleep now. The numbers add up. The harvest is in. The battle is over. We are moving now, leaving the hum of the calculations and the roar of rockets behind. The air changes. It becomes thick with salt and humidity. The ground beneath us shifts from the solid floors of NASA to something much more unstable, the deck of a ship. But this isn't a whaling vessel or a slaver. This is a ship of war. The year is 1813. You are on Lake Erie. Congratulations. You're a sailor in the United States Navy during the War of 1812. And you are black. This might surprise you. History books often paint this war as a conflict between white men in powdered wigs. But look around the deck. Nearly 1 in 5 sailors here looks like you. The Navy is one of the few places in America where a black man can serve alongside white men, eat the same food, and receive equal pay, mostly. The sea is a pragmatic place. It doesn't care about race. It cares about keeping the ship afloat. You're on the USS Lawrence, the flagship of Commodore Oliver Hazard Perry. The British fleet is on the horizon, a line of white sails against the grey sky. The battle begins at noon. It is chaos. The British have long guns that can hit you from a mile away. Your ship has carronades, short, heavy guns that require you to get close. Too close. You're a powder monkey. Your job is to run gunpowder from the magazine deep in the ship up to the gun deck. It is terrifying. You're carrying explosive charges in a canvas bag while cannonballs smash through the hull around you. Splinters the size of spears fly through the air. Men are screaming. The deck is slick with blood. You run. You hand the powder to the gun crew. They ram it down the muzzle. Boom. The gun recoils, a massive iron beast jumping back on its carriage. The smoke is thick, choking, smelling of sulphur. The Lawrence is taking a beating. The British are pounding it to pieces. The rigging falls. The masts are shattered. Most of the crew is dead or wounded. Perry makes a desperate decision. He's going to transfer his flag to another ship, the Niagara, which is still fresh. You help row the small boat through the hail of gunfire. Perry stands in the stern holding his banner, "Don't give up the ship." It is a suicidal manoeuvre. Musket balls splash in the water around you, but you pull. Your muscles scream. You reach the Niagara. Perry takes command. He sails straight into the British line, unleashing a broadside that cripples their fleet. The British surrender. You survive the battle. But the war isn't the only threat. Life at sea is brutal. The food is hardtack, again, and salt beef that has been in a barrel for years. The water is stale, scurvy makes your gums bleed, discipline is harsh, the cat o' nine tails is used for minor infractions. But you have status. You are a veteran. When you walk the streets of Philadelphia or Baltimore after the war, you wear your uniform. People might look at you sideways, but they see the buttons. They know you fought. However, the freedom you fought for is elusive. As the decades pass, the Navy becomes more segregated. The opportunities shrink. By the Civil War, black sailors are often relegated to messmen and cooks. The equality of the gun deck is forgotten. But you were there. You helped save the Great Lakes. You helped forge a nation that hasn't quite decided if it wants you. Let the smoke of the naval battle clear. We're going to land again, but not to a farm or a city. We're going to the wilderness of the mind. The year is 1930. You're in a library in New York City, the 135th Street branch. Congratulations. You're an archivist. But not just any archivist. You are Arturo Schomburg. You are Puerto Rican of African descent. When you were a child, a teacher told you that black people had no history, no culture, no achievements. That lie sparked a fire in your belly that never went out. You have spent your life hunting for proof. You are a detective of history. You scour bookstores, attics, and private collections. You spend every penny you earn on books, pamphlets, and manuscripts. You find letters written by Toussaint Louverture, the leader of the Haitian Revolution. You find the poetry of Phyllis Wheatley, an enslaved girl who amazed George Washington. You find the astronomical almanacs of Benjamin Banneker, who helped survey Washington, D.C. You amass a collection of over 10,000 items. It is a treasure trove. It proves that black history didn't start with slavery. It proves that African people have been artists, scientists, and kings. But preservation is a struggle. Books are fragile. Paper turns to dust. You have to fight against moisture, insects, and indifference. You have to convince institutions that this material is worth saving. You donate your collection to the New York Public Library. It becomes the Schomburg Center for Research in Black Culture. It is a beacon. Scholars come from all over the world. Artists like Langston Hughes and Zora Neale Hurston use your archives to fuel the Harlem Renaissance. Survival here meant fighting erasure. It meant proving your existence to a world that wanted to forget you. It meant building a fortress of paper and ink that could withstand the lies of history. You sit in the reading room. It is quiet. The smell of old paper is comforting. You pick up a book. It is rare, bound in leather. You open it. You're saving the past so the future can have a foundation. Let the library fade. The quiet turns into a low mechanical hum. We're going to a factory floor, but not just any factory. The year is 1942. You're in Detroit, Michigan. Congratulations. You are a Rosie the Riveter, but you're a black Rosie. The war is raging, the men are gone, the factories need workers, but when you apply, they turn you away. We aren't hiring coloured women, they say. You don't accept that. You organise. You protest. You write letters to the president. Finally, Executive Order 8802 is signed, banning discrimination in defence industries. The doors crack open. You get a job at the Ford Willow Run plant. You are building B-24 Liberator bombers. The factory is enormous. It is a city of steel and noise. The air smells of welding fumes and machine oil. It is hot. You wear a bandana to keep your hair out of the machinery. You wear coveralls. Your job is riveting. You hold a heavy pneumatic gun. It vibrates violently. You have to drive rivets into the aluminum skin of the plane. It requires strength and precision. If you mess up, the plane could fall apart in the sky. You work alongside white women. At first, it is tense. They look at you with suspicion. They refuse to share the bathroom. But the work brings you together. You rely on each other. You realize you're both tired, both worried about your husbands and brothers overseas. You're earning good money for the first time in your life. You can afford a decent apartment. You can buy war bonds. You feel a sense of purpose. You're building the arsenal of democracy. But the struggle continues. You face discrimination in housing. The Sojourner Truth Housing Project riot happens right in your city. White mobs attacking black families trying to move into new homes. You have to walk through a gauntlet of hate just to get to your front door. Survival here is about claiming your space. It is about proving that you can build the machines of war just as well as anyone else. It is about economic independence. The war ends. The men come back. You are fired. Thank you for your service. Now go back to the kitchen. But you don't go back to being the same person. You have tasted independence. You have skills. You have power. You join the NACP. You fight for civil rights. You become the backbone of the movement that will change America in the 1950s and 60s. As you drift off to sleep, you think about the sailor, the archivist, the riveter. They all faced walls. The wall of British cannon fire, the wall of historical erasure, the wall of segregation, and they all found a way through, over, or around. The sailor held the line. The archivist saved the truth. The riveter built the future. You're safe in your bed. The world is quiet, but you can hear them. The creak of the ship, the rustle of the page, the hum of the factory. They are the sounds of survival. They are the sounds of you. Sleep now. The archives are safe. The ship is in harbour. The plane is flying. The roar of the factory fades, replaced by a rhythmic, hypnotic clatter. Clack, 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 clack. It is a sound that lulls you. A heartbeat of steel on steel. The year is 1925. You are on the 20th Century Limited, a train racing through the night from Chicago to New York. Congratulations. You're a Pullman porter. You're wearing a pristine white jacket and a cap with a shiny black brim. Your shoes are polished to a mirror shine. To the passengers, you're invisible. Or worse, you're a caricature. They call you George. It doesn't matter that your name is Thomas or William or Marcus. To them, you're named after George Pullman, the man who built the sleeping cars. You're property of the company, but you know exactly who you are. You're the most sophisticated traveller in America. Your shift started 3 days ago. You haven't slept more than 2 hours at a stretch since then. You sleep on a cot in the smoking car, or upright on a stool in the hallway, listening for the bell. Ding! Room 4 needs a glass of water. Ding! Room 7 needs their shoes shined. You move through the swaying train with the grace of a dancer. You have to. The corridors are narrow and the train lurches violently around curves. If you spill a drink, it comes out of your pay. If you drop a tray, you could be fired. Your job is customer service, but it is also engineering. At night, you transform the coach cars into sleeping berths. It is a mechanical puzzle. You pull down the upper bunks, unlock the seats to slide them flat, snap the mattresses into place, hang the heavy velvet curtains. You do this for 20 beds in 30 minutes. It is a workout. Your back aches, your arms burn, but you don't sweat. You can't sweat. You have to look crisp. The air in the car smells of stale cigar smoke, wool upholstery, and the faint metallic scent of the rails. But there is a secret life here. You are part of a network, the Brotherhood of Sleeping Car Porters. It is the first black labour union in America, led by A. Philip Randolph. Organising it is dangerous. If the company finds a union card in your pocket, you are blacklisted. You will never work on the rails again. So you whisper. You pass information in the linen closet. You signal to porters on other trains as they pass in the sidings. And you are a smuggler. Not of drugs or guns, but of news. You carry the Chicago Defender and the Pittsburgh Courier, black newspapers that tell the truth about lynchings in the South and job opportunities in the North. These papers are banned in many southern towns. White sheriffs will arrest anyone caught distributing them. So you hide them. You fold them inside the glossy magazines you leave for passengers. You drop bundles off at rural depots in Mississippi and Georgia in the dead of night. You are the internet of the black community before the internet existed. You are connecting the North and the South, spreading the word of the Great Migration. You step out onto the vestibule between cars to catch a breath of fresh air. The wind rushes past at 60 miles an hour. It is cold and smells of coal smoke from the locomotive. You look out at the passing darkness. Farmhouses flicker by like fireflies. You are tired. Your feet are swollen inside your polished shoes. Your smile is a mask that hurts your face. But you feel powerful. You are moving. You are connected. You are building a middle class for your people, one tip at a time. Survival here is about dignity. It is about maintaining your self-respect when the world tries to strip it away. It is about serving the passengers while secretly serving a higher cause. Let the train whistle blow, a lonely sound in the night. We are leaving the rails now. We're going back, way back, to a place where the ship is an animal and the ocean is made of sand. The year is 1324. You're in the Sahara Desert. Congratulations. You're part of the caravan of Mansa Musa, the Emperor of Mali. You're not the Emperor. You're a guard, or perhaps a camel driver. You're in the middle of the Hajj, the pilgrimage to Mecca. But this isn't just a religious journey. It is the largest movement of wealth in human history. You look around. The caravan stretches as far as the eye can see. 60,000 people. Soldiers, heralds, merchants, slaves, and camels. Thousands of camels. Each one is carrying hundreds of pounds of pure gold dust. The heat is a physical weight. It presses down on you from a white-hot sky. The sand reflects the sun, blinding you. You wrap your tegelmust, the indigo-dyed veil, around your face, leaving only a slit for your eyes. The cloth smells of indigo dye and sweat. It protects you from the sun and the wind-blown sand that can strip skin from bone during a storm. Water is more precious than the gold you're guarding. You drink from goatskin bags. The water is warm and tastes of leather, but it keeps you alive. You ration it carefully. You know the distance to the next oasis down to the steppe. If you miss the well, everyone dies. Survival here is about logistics on a massive scale. How do you feed 60,000 people in a desert? You have scouts riding ahead, buying goats and grain from Bedouin tribes. You have a mobile city that sets up every night and breaks down every morning. You walk alongside the camels. They're grumpy, spitting creatures, but they are miracles of biology. They can go days without water. You learn to read their moods. If a camel refuses to stand, it might mean a storm is coming. The nights in the Sahara are freezing. The temperature drops 50 degrees as soon as the sun sets. You sleep on the sand, wrapped in wool blankets. The silence is absolute. There are no insects, no birds, just the wind hissing over the dunes. You look up at the stars. They are so bright they look like they're hanging just out of reach. You navigate by them. The same stars that guide sailors on the ocean guide you here. You reach Cairo. The arrival of Mansa Musa is like an atomic bomb of wealth. He gives away so much gold to the poor, to the mosques, to the officials, that he crashes the economy of Egypt. The value of gold plummets for a decade because of this one visit. You watch the people of Cairo stare at your caravan. They have never seen wealth like this. They thought the lands south of the Sahara were primitive. You show them the truth. You come from a civilization of universities, of libraries, of complex trade networks. But the journey back is harder. The gold is gone. Supplies run low. Disease strikes the caravan. You have to cross the desert again. You survive by grit. By knowing how to find water in a Druwadi. By knowing how to treat a camel's blistered foot. By knowing that the desert does not forgive mistakes. You return to Timbuktu. You see the great mosques made of mud, brick and timber rising from the earth. You walk into the University of Sankore, where scholars are studying astronomy and mathematics. You realize that you are part of the center of the world. Survival here meant mastering the most hostile environment on Earth to build a bridge between civilizations. Let the desert wind fade. We are moving to a place that is wet, dark, and tangled. A place where the map says unexplored. The year is 1835. You're in the Florida Everglades. Congratulations. You're a black Seminole. You're a descendant of runaways who fled the plantations of Georgia and the Carolinas generations ago. You were welcomed by the Seminole Indians. You live in free settlements. You wear Seminole clothing, colourful patchwork shirts, turbans adorned with feathers. You speak a mix of Creek, English, and Spanish. But the United States Army is coming. They want the land, and they want to return you to slavery. This is the Second Seminole War. It is the Vietnam War of the 19th century. You are a guerrilla warrior. You cannot fight the army in open battle. They have cannons and lines of infantry. So you use the swamp. You lure them in. You hide in the sawgrass, which is tall enough to cover a man and sharp enough to slice skin. You cover yourself in mud to hide your scent and your skin. You wait. The soldiers are terrified of the Everglades. They faint from the heat. They get lost in the mangrove mazes. They are eaten by alligators. They die of malaria. You strike fast. A volley of rifle fire from the tree line, and then you vanish. You retreat to hammocks. islands of high ground deep in the swamp where you have hidden your families and your crops. You grow kunti, a root that can be ground into flour. You hunt turtles and garfish. You know every channel, every dry path. You fight alongside the Seminole leader Osceola. You are his interpreter, his advisor, his brother in arms. The US generals are confused. They report back to Washington that the Negroes are the finest fighters they have ever faced. They offer you deals. Surrender and we will send you west, but you will be free. It is a tempting offer. The war has dragged on for years. Your children are hungry, but can you trust them? Some of you fight to the death. Some of you accept the deal and are moved to Oklahoma, walking the Trail of Tears alongside the indigenous nations, but you survived. You forced the United States government to negotiate with you. You remained free. As you drift to sleep, you feel the humidity of the swamp, the dry heat of the desert, the vibration of the train, the porter, the caravan guard, the maroon warrior. They all lived in in-between places, between stations, between oases, between dry land and deep water. They mastered the spaces that others feared. They teach us that survival is about adaptation. It is about taking the tools you have, a towel, a camel, a rifle, a newspaper, and using them to carve out a space for yourself in a world that wants to push you out. Sleep now. The train is on time. The caravan has reached the well. The hammock is hidden. You are safe. The humid air of the Everglades lifts, replaced by the sterile chemical scent of a laboratory. We are moving forward to the mid-20th century, but the struggle remains the same: to be seen, to be valued, and to survive against the odds. The year is 1943. You are in a hospital ward in Baltimore. Congratulations. You are Vivian Thomas. You're not a doctor. You have no medical degree. You wanted to go to college, but the Great Depression wiped out your savings. So you took a job as a janitor at Vanderbilt University, and eventually you became a lab assistant to Dr. Alfred Blaylock. Now you are at Johns Hopkins. You are wearing a white lab coat, but you enter through the back door. When you walk down the halls, the white doctors mistake you for cleaning staff. But inside the lab, you are the master. You're working on a problem that has killed thousands of children: blue baby syndrome. It is a heart defect that prevents blood from getting enough oxygen. The babies turn blue and die. The medical world says it is inoperable. You think otherwise. You spend your days designing surgical instruments. The ones that exist are too big for a baby's heart, so you modify clamps, you grind down needles. You practice the surgery on dogs, hundreds of them. You learn the anatomy of the heart better than any surgeon alive. You stand over the operating table in the animal lab. Your hands are steady. You're stitching blood. Vessels the size of angel hair pasta. Dr. Blaylock watches you. He relies on you. He cannot do this without you. Then comes the day of the first human surgery. A baby girl named Eileen Saxon. She is dying. You're not allowed to operate. You are black. You cannot touch a white patient. So you stand on a stool behind Dr. Blaylock's shoulder. You guide him. Go left, doctor. Tighten that suture. Watch the artery. You are the brain. He is the hands. The tension in the operating room is palpable. The other doctors and nurses are watching history being made, but they don't see you. You are a shadow in the corner. The clamps come off. The baby turns pink. She lives. It is a medical miracle. Dr. Blaylock becomes famous. He travels the world giving speeches. You stay in the lab. You train the residents. You teach the next generation of heart surgeons how to cut, how to stitch, how to save lives. But you are paid a janitor's wage. Survival here is about swallowing your pride. It is about knowing your worth even when the world refuses to acknowledge it. It is about the quiet satisfaction of seeing a child walk out of the hospital because of a procedure you invented. Years later, decades later, they will hang your portrait in the lobby of Johns Hopkins next to Blaylock's. But for now, you take off your lab coat, put on your street clothes, and take the segregated bus home. Let the hospital fade. The antiseptic smell is replaced by the scent of ozone and burning rubber. We're going to the track. The year is 1936. You are in Berlin, Germany. Congratulations. You are Jesse Owens. You are standing in the Olympic Stadium. It is a colossal structure of stone draped in swastika banners. Adolf Hitler is in the stands. He has declared that these games will prove the superiority of the Aryan race. You are the counter-argument. You walk out onto the track. The crowd is massive. 100,000 people. You can feel their eyes on you. Some are hostile, some are curious. But the pressure isn't just from the Germans. It's from home. You were representing a country that treats you as a second-class citizen. You had to ride the freight elevator at the Waldorf Astoria in New York to attend a reception in your honour before you left. You dig your starting holes in the cinder track with a small trowel. You shake out your legs. You focus. The gun goes off. You explode from the blocks. For the next 10.3 seconds, nothing matters but speed. Not Hitler, not Jim Crow, not the history of slavery. Just the rhythm of your stride. You cross the line. Gold. You do it again in the 200 metres. Gold. In the long jump. Gold. In the relay. Gold. 4 gold medals. You have single-handedly dismantled the myth of Aryan supremacy on the world stage. But survival happens after the race. You go back to the Olympic Village. You are a hero. But when you return to America, there is no invitation to the White House. President Roosevelt doesn't send a telegram. He needs the Southern vote, and he won't risk alienating white supremacists by honouring a black athlete. You have to make a living. You race horses for money. You work as a gas station attendant. You're the fastest man alive, and you're struggling to pay rent. Survival here meant realising that glory is fleeting, but dignity is permanent. You never let them see you bitter. You carry yourself with the same grace on the gas pump island as you did on the podium. Let the roar of the Berlin crowd fade. We're going to a place of quiet intensity, a place of strategy and shadows. The year is 1791. You're in Saint-Domingue, modern-day Haiti. Congratulations, you are Toussaint Louverture. You were born a slave, but you're now a free man. You're a coachman, a veterinarian, a man of some standing. But the island is burning. The enslaved people of the sugar plantations have risen up. They are burning the cane fields. They are killing the masters. It is the beginning of the only successful slave revolution in history. You join the fight. But you're not just a rebel. You're a general. You read Caesar and Machiavelli. You understand geopolitics. You are fighting the French, then the Spanish, then the British, then the French again. You play the empires against each other like chess pieces. You turn a ragtag army of field hands into a disciplined military force. You use the terrain. You lure the Europeans into the mountains where their heavy wool uniforms and lack of immunity to yellow fever decimate them. You write a constitution. You declare yourself Governor-General for life. You abolish slavery forever on the island. But Napoleon Bonaparte wants his colony back. He sends a massive fleet. You're captured, tricked into a meeting under a flag of truce. They put you on a ship to France. You die in a cold prison cell in the Jura Mountains, far from the warmth of the Caribbean. You die of pneumonia and neglect, but you won. Your lieutenants continue the fight. They defeat Napoleon's army. In 1804, Haiti declares independence. It is the first black republic in the world. Survival here wasn't personal, it was national. You sacrificed your life to birth a country. You proved that the Enlightenment ideals of liberty, equality, fraternity belong to everyone, not just white Europeans. Let the mountains of Haiti fade. We're going to a place of dust and wind, but with a different kind of freedom. The year is 1910. You're in Allensworth, California. Congratulations. You're a pioneer in the first town in California founded, financed, and governed by African Americans. You're Colonel Allen Allensworth. You were born a slave in Kentucky. You learned to read in secret. You served in the Navy during the Civil War. You became a chaplain in the Army, rising to the rank of Lieutenant Colonel, the highest-ranking black officer of your time. You retire, but you have one more mission. You want to build a sanctuary, a place where black people can live without the daily stress of racism. A place where black excellence is the norm. You find land in the San Joaquin Valley. It is dry, dusty, and cheap. You buy it. You advertise in black newspapers across the country. Come to Allensworth. Build a future. People come. Former soldiers, teachers, farmers. You build a town, a school, a library, a church, a hotel. You plant alfalfa, sugar beets, cotton. The water is the problem. The Pacific Farming Company, which sold you the land, promised abundant water, but the wells are drying up. The water table is dropping because white farmers upstream are diverting the flow. And then the railroad. The Santa Fe Railroad refuses to build a depot at Allensworth, forcing residents to carry their goods to a white town miles away. It is economic warfare, but you fight back. You dig deeper wells. You start a voting bloc. You turn Allensworth into a cultural hub. Survival here was about self-determination. It was about the dream of autonomy. The town eventually declines after your death. A tragic accident involving a motorcycle, and the continued water crisis. But for a few glorious decades, it was a city on a hill. As you drift off to sleep, you think about the surgeon, the sprinter, the general, the town builder. They were all architects. Architects of bodies, of moments, of nations, of communities. They faced systems that said, you cannot exist here, and they said, watch me. The hospital's quiet, the stadium is empty, the island is free, the town is a memory, but the blueprints remain. They are in the way we think about medicine, sports, freedom and community today. Sleep now. The surgery is a success. The race is won. The republic stands. The quiet of Allensworth fades into the sound of a gavel striking wood. The dust of the California Valley is replaced by the polished mahogany and leather scent of a courtroom. The year is 1857. You're in St. Louis, Missouri. Congratulations. You're Dred Scott. You're sitting in a federal courthouse. You're not a lawyer. You're the plaintiff. But in the eyes of the law, you are property. You're suing for your freedom. You have lived with your owner, an army surgeon in Illinois and the Wisconsin Territory, places where slavery is illegal. The law says that once a slave resides on free soil, they become free. Once free, always free. You have been fighting this battle for 11 years. 11 years of legal briefs, appeals, and waiting. You have watched your daughters grow up in the shadow of this case. You are doing this for them. So they won't be sold. The courtroom is packed. The air is thick with cigar smoke and tension. The judge reads the decision of the Supreme Court. Chief Justice Roger Taney writes the words that will tear the country apart. He says that you're not a citizen, that no black person, enslaved or free, can ever be a citizen of the United States. He says that you have no rights which the white man is bound to respect. It is a devastating blow. It erases your humanity with a stroke of a pen. It declares that the Constitution does not apply to you. But you don't collapse. You sit straight. You look the judge in the eye. You have lost the case, but you have exposed the rot at the heart of the nation. Your name will become a rallying cry. It will push the country toward the civil war that will eventually end slavery. You are manumitted, freed, by the blowback of the case. The original owner's family buys you just to set you free because the publicity is too much. You work as a porter in a hotel for the last months of your life. You die a free man. Survival here was about using the master's tools, the law, against him. It was about forcing the country to look in the mirror. Let the courtroom fade. We're going to a place of sawdust and canvas, a place of spectacle. The year is 1912. You're travelling across America. Congratulations. You're the heavyweight boxing champion of the world. You're Jack Johnson. You're the Galveston Giant. You're huge, powerful, and unapologetically black. You knocked out the great white hope, Jim Jeffries, and sparked race riots across the country just by winning. You drive fast cars, you wear fur coats, you date white women. You refuse to be the humble Negro that society demands. You live loud. But there is a target on your back. The government wants to take you down. They can't beat you in the ring, so they try to beat you in the court. They use the Mann Act, a law designed to stop human trafficking, to arrest you for transporting your white girlfriend across state lines for immoral purposes. It is a sham trial. You are convicted. You flee the country. You live in exile in Europe, in Mexico. You fight in bull rings. You perform in vaudeville. You keep winning. But you are homesick. You eventually surrender to US authorities and serve a year in Leavenworth prison. Even in prison, you are a king. You act as the athletic director. You invent a new kind of wrench. You hold the patent. Survival here was about psychological warfare. It was about refusing to let them break your spirit. You forced America to deal with a black man who was stronger, richer, and more famous than his white counterparts. You paved the way for Ali, for Tyson, for every athlete who refused to shut up and dribble. Let the roar of the crowd fade. We're going to a place of quiet study, a place of stars. The year is 1750. You're in Maryland. Congratulations. You're Benjamin Banneker. You're a free black man living on a tobacco farm. But your mind is in the heavens. You're an astronomer, a mathematician, a surveyor. You have taught yourself everything. You borrowed books. You built a wooden clock that keeps perfect time for 50 years, having only seen a pocket watch once. You spend your nights lying in the fields, tracking the movement of the stars. You calculate eclipses. You predict the weather. You publish an almanac that farmers across the region rely on. You're hired to help survey the new capital city, Washington, D.C. but the head surveyor, Pierre L'Enfant, gets fired and takes the plans with him. The project is in chaos. You step forward. You have memorized the plans. You redraw the entire layout of the city from memory. The streets, the monuments, the Capitol building. Washington, D.C. exists because of your mind. You write a letter to Thomas Jefferson. You challenge him. You quote the Declaration of Independence back to him, all men are created equal, and point out the hypocrisy of his owning slaves. It is a bold, dangerous move. But Jefferson replies. He praises your intellect. Survival here was about intellectual defiance. It was about proving that a black man could master the sciences that Europeans claimed were their exclusive domain. It was about etching your genius into the map of the nation. Let the stars fade. We are going to a place of iron bars and cold concrete. The year is 1963. You are in Birmingham jail. Congratulations. You are Martin Luther King Jr. You are in solitary confinement. It is dark. It is lonely. You have no lawyer. You have no phone call. You read a newspaper that was smuggled in. 8 white clergymen have written an open letter calling your protests unwise and untimely. They tell you to wait. They tell you to let the courts handle it. You don't have any paper, so you start writing in the margins of the newspaper. Then on scraps of toilet paper, you write a letter back. Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. You write about the stinging darts of segregation. You write about explaining to your 6-year-old daughter why she can't go to the amusement park advertised on TV. You write about the wait that almost always means never. Your words flow like a river. They are angry but controlled. They are philosophical but urgent. You're turning a jail cell into a pulpit. Survival here was about transforming isolation into connection. It was about using the very walls they built to confine you as a sounding board for your message. The letter from Birmingham jail becomes one of the most important documents in American history. As you drift off to sleep, you think about the plaintiff, the boxer, the astronomer, the preacher. They all used what they had. The law, the fist, the mind, the pen. They all refused to accept the limits placed on them. You are safe in your bed, but their legacy surrounds you. It is in the laws that protect you. It is in the city you live in. It is in the sports you watch. It is in the moral conscience of your nation. Sleep now. The verdict is in. The fight is won. The stars are aligned. The letter is sent. The ink dries on the letter in the Birmingham jail. The scraps of paper smuggled out like precious gems. We are moving again, leaving the cell behind for something far more ancient, yet surprisingly advanced. The year is 1100 AD. You're standing in the dry heat of the Sahel, in what is now Mauritania. Congratulations. You're an architect in the city of Oualata. You're not building skyscrapers. You're building something more vital. Cooling systems in a place where the sun can kill. The city is a masterpiece of mud and stone. The walls are painted with intricate geometric patterns, red, white and earth tones, called tarkas. But the beauty is functional. You're designing a house for a wealthy merchant. The challenge is the heat. It reaches 120 degrees Fahrenheit in the shade, but inside your buildings, it is cool. How? It is all about airflow. You build thick walls of adobe brick which absorb the heat during the day and release it at night. You design small, high windows that let hot air escape while drawing cooler air in from the shaded courtyards below. The stack effect. You incorporate wind catchers, towers that trap the breeze and funnel it down into the living spaces. You place jars of water in the path of the wind so that evaporation cools the air further. It is ancient air conditioning, powered by physics and ingenuity. You're also a master of water conservation. You design cisterns to catch every drop of the rare desert rain. You create qanats, underground canals that bring water from distant aquifers without evaporation. The city of Oualata is a hub of trade and scholarship, part of the Ghana Empire. You rub shoulders with scholars from Cairo and merchants from Timbuktu. You discuss astronomy, theology and mathematics. But survival here is precarious. The desert is always encroaching. Sandstorms can bury a city in a day. You have to constantly maintain the walls, replastering the mud after every season. It is a battle against entropy. The decline of the trans-Saharan trade routes eventually silences Oualata. The gold moves elsewhere. The caravans stop coming. But the city remains, a testament to the ability to build comfort in the cauldron of the sun. Let the desert wind cool. We are moving to a place of deep forests and hidden trails. The year is 1851. You're in Christiana, Pennsylvania. Congratulations. You're a freedom fighter, and you are armed. This is not a peaceful protest. This is the Christiana resistance. The Fugitive Slave Act has just passed. It allows slave catchers to pursue runaways into free states and compels local citizens to help them. It is a declaration of war on black freedom. You are William Parker. You escaped slavery in Maryland years ago. You run a mutual protection society in Christiana. You have a signal network. When slave catchers are spotted, horns blow, bells ring. The community rallies. It is September 11th. A Maryland slave owner, Edward Gorsuch, arrives with a federal marshal and a posse. They are coming for 4 men who are hiding in your house. They demand you surrender the men. You refuse. I will not surrender them, you say from your window, and if you try to take them, you will have to walk over my dead body. The horn sounds. Neighbours come running, black men with muskets, white Quakers with pitchforks. The posse is surrounded. Gunfire erupts. Gorsuch falls dead. His son is wounded. The marshal and the posse flee. It is a victory, but it is also terrifying. You have killed a white man. You have defied the federal government. The president sends the Marines. They arrest everyone they can find, white and black. 38 men are charged with treason. You escape. You're hidden by friends, moved along the Underground Railroad to Canada. You spend the winter in Buxton, Ontario. The trial becomes a national sensation, but the jury refuses to convict. The government's case collapses. The resistance at Christiana becomes the first battle of the Civil War, a decade before Sumter. Survival here was about drawing a line in the sand. It was about saying, no further. It was about community defence. Let the sound of the musket fire fade. We're going to a place of rhythm and steel. The year's 1941. You're in a recording studio in New York. Congratulations. Your sister Rosetta Tharpe. You're holding an electric guitar, a Gibson SG. You're wearing a gospel robe, but you're playing rock and roll before rock and roll has a name. You're a queer black woman in a world that doesn't know what to do with you. The church thinks your music is too secular. The clubs think it's too religious. You live in the tension. You pluck the strings. Your fingers are calloused. You shred. You distort the sound. You make the guitar scream and wail like a preacher. You're touring the South on a bus. It is dangerous. You can't stop at hotels. You sleep on the bus. You eat sardines out of a can. But when you get on stage, you are electric. You influence everyone. Chuck Berry, Elvis, Little Richard. They all watch you. They all steal your licks. Survival here is about authenticity. It is about refusing to fit into a box. It is about playing your truth so loud that they can't ignore you. Let the guitar feedback fade. We are going to a place of quiet dignity. The year is 1955. You are in the Mississippi Delta. Congratulations. You're Mose Wright. You're a sharecropper and a preacher. You're 64 years old. You have lived your whole life keeping your head down, saying yes sir to white men to stay alive. But then your nephew comes to visit from Chicago, Emmett Till. You know the story, the whistle, the kidnapping in the night, the body in the river. But this is your part of the story, the trial. You're called to testify. In a Mississippi courtroom packed with white men, with the murderers sitting right there, armed. No black man has ever stood up in a court in Mississippi and accused a white man of murder and lived. The prosecutor asks you to identify the men who took your nephew. You stand up. You point a finger work-hardened by decades of picking cotton. Thari, you say. It is a moment of supreme courage. You know they might kill you for this. You have already sent your wife away for safety. You are alone. The jury acquits them, of course. But you broke the silence. You look the monster in the eye. You leave Mississippi. You move to Chicago. You never go back. But that moment, the pointing finger, is etched in history. It is the spark that lights the modern civil rights movement. As you drift off to sleep, you think about the architect, the fighter, the musician, the witness. They all use different tools, mud bricks, muskets, guitars. The truth. They all face the heat of the sun, the heat of battle, the heat of the spotlight, the heat of hatred, and they all stood tall. Sleep now, the walls are cool, the trial is over, the music plays on, you're safe. The echoes of the courtroom fade into the steady thrum-thrum of a sewing machine. We are moving to a place of quiet industry, where the battle for dignity is fought with a needle and thread. The year is 1860. You're in Washington, D.C. Congratulations, you're Elizabeth Keckley. You were born enslaved in Virginia. You bought your own freedom for 1-200, money you earned by sewing dresses for the wives of the men who enslaved you. Now you are the most sought-after dressmaker in the capital. You are standing in the White House. You are fitting a dress on the First Lady, Mary Todd Lincoln. The room is opulent, filled with velvet drapes and gold leaf mirrors, but the atmosphere is heavy with the impending war. Mary is anxious, volatile. She relies on you not just for fashion, but for emotional stability. You are her confidant. You listen to her fears while you pin silk and lace. You have a unique vantage point. You hear the secrets of the Union. You see the toll the war takes on the president. You walk through the halls of power, a free black woman who holds the trust of the most powerful family in the nation. But your life is a paradox. You are wealthy and respected, yet you cannot vote. You organize relief efforts for the contrabands, formerly enslaved people flooding into DC seeking freedom. You use your connections to raise money, to find them shelter and food. Your son George joins the Union Army. He is killed in battle. You grieve in silence while sewing mourning clothes for the First Lady, who has also lost a son. It is a shared sorrow that transcends race, if only for a moment. After the war, after Lincoln's assassination, Mary falls into debt and scandal. You write a memoir behind the scenes, trying to defend her, trying to tell your truth, but the public turns on you. They call it a betrayal of confidence. Your business collapses. You die in poverty, in a home for destitute women that you helped found. Survival here was about navigation. Navigating the complex social codes of elite white society while maintaining your connection to your own community. It was about using your talent to buy your freedom and then using your freedom to help others. Let the rustle of silk fade. We are going to a place of iron and steam. The year is 1870. You're in Birmingham, Alabama. Congratulations. You're an iron puddler. This is one of the most skilled and dangerous jobs in the industrial world. You stand before a furnace heated to 3,000 degrees. Inside is molten pig iron. Your job is to stir it with a long iron rod, burning out the impurities until it becomes wrought iron. It requires immense strength and an expert eye. You have to know exactly when the iron is coming to nature, when it turns into a pasty ball that can be removed. If you pull it too soon, it's useless. Too late, it burns. The heat is unbearable. You wear heavy wool clothes to protect your skin from sparks, but you're soaked in sweat instantly. You drink gallons of water mixed with oatmeal to keep from dehydrating. Your eyes are constantly irritated by the glare and the fumes. But you are the aristocrat of labour. You earn high wages. You control the pace of the work. The mill owners can't replace you easily. You use this power. You help form unions. You strike for better conditions. You build a black middle class in the heart of the industrial South. Survival here was about mastery. Mastery over fire and metal. It was about turning the most brutal conditions into a source of pride and power. Let the furnace roar die down. We're going to a place of wide open sky and roaring engines. The year is 1921. You're in an airfield in Chicago. Congratulations. You're Bessie Coleman. You wanted to fly, but American flight schools wouldn't take you because you were black and a woman. So you learned French. You saved every penny from working as a manicurist. You went to France. You earned your international pilot's license, the first black person to do so. Now you are back. You are Queen Bess. You are a barnstormer. You fly a Jenny biplane. It is made of wood and fabric. It has no cockpit cover. You're exposed to the wind and the noise. You perform loops, barrel rolls, figure eights. You walk on the wings while the plane is in the air. You draw massive crowds, but you refuse to perform at segregated venues. If black people can't walk through the front gate, you don't fly. You force fairgrounds to integrate for a day just to see you. You dream of opening a flight school for black aviators. You want to give others the wings you had to fight for, but the danger is real. Your plane is old, prone to mechanical failure. In 1926, during a test flight, a wrench gets stuck in the controls. The plane flips. You fall. You didn't have a parachute. You didn't believe in them. You died falling from the sky you conquered. But your dream didn't die. The Bessie Coleman Aero Clubs spring up across the country. They train the pilots who will become the Tuskegee Airmen. Survival here was about defiance of gravity and prejudice. It was about soaring above the limits placed on you. Let the engine sputter out. We're going to a place of quiet study and legal strategy. The year is 1935. You're in a law library at Howard University. Congratulations. You are Charles Hamilton Houston. You are the man who killed Jim Crow. You are the dean of Howard Law School. You are training a generation of legal assassins. Thurgood Marshall is your student. You are a soldier, a veteran of WWI. You saw how black soldiers were treated in France versus how they were treated at home. You vowed to fight for equality. Your strategy is brilliant. You don't attack segregation head-on, not yet. You attack the equal part of separate but equal. You sue states that don't have law schools for black students. You force them to either build expensive new schools or integrate the white ones. You make segregation too expensive to maintain. You travel the South with a movie camera. You film the disparity between white schools and black schools. You document the leaky roofs, the lack of books, the overcrowding. You use this evidence in court. You work yourself to death. The stress, the travel, the constant battles. You die of a heart attack at 54. But you laid the groundwork. 4 years after your death, the Supreme Court rules in Brown versus Board of Education. Segregation is unconstitutional. Survival here was about intellectual warfare. It was about seeing the long game. It was about training the army that would win the war after you were gone. As you drift off to sleep, you think about the dressmaker, the iron puddler, the pilot, the lawyer. They were all makers. They made clothes. They made iron. They made flight. They made law. They took the raw materials of their lives, oppression, talent, ambition, and forged them into something that changed the world. Sleep now. The dress is finished. The iron is pure. The plane has landed. The case is won. The quiet scratching of the legal pen fades, replaced by the click of a revolver cylinder spinning. We are moving away from the courtroom and back into the wild, but this time, you aren't driving cattle. You are hunting men. The year is 1884. You are in the Indian Territory, modern-day Oklahoma. Congratulations. You are Bass Reeves. You are a deputy U.S. Marshal. You are the first black deputy to serve west of the Mississippi. You are a legend in your own time, though history will try to erase you. You are sitting by a campfire, but you aren't wearing a badge. You are dressed as a tramp. Your boots are worn through, your hat is battered, and you smell of 3 days on the road. This is your survival strategy. Disguise. You're tracking 2 outlaws who are hiding in a cabin deep in the brush. If you ride in with a star on your chest, they will shoot you from 100 yards out. So you walk in. You pretend to be a fugitive yourself. You knock on their door. You ask for water. You tell them a story about being on the run from the law. You speak their language. You share their food. You sleep on their floor. You lie there, eyes closed, listening to their breathing. You have handcuffs in your pocket. You have a Colt .45 tucked into your waistband under your rags. You wait until the moment is perfect. Maybe it's when they are eating breakfast. Maybe it's when they go to saddle their horses. You move faster than they can think. You draw your weapon. Hands up, you say. The tramp voice is gone. The voice of the law is back. They surrender. They are shocked. They never saw it coming. You march them back to Fort Smith, Arkansas. It is a 3-day journey. You walk behind them, vigilant. You have arrested over 3,000 felons in your career. You have killed only 14 men in self-defense. You prefer to bring them in alive. It pays better, and it proves a point. Survival here is about wit. It is about being an actor as much as a gunman. It is about knowing the terrain of the human mind as well as the terrain of the Badlands. You are the real Lone Ranger, but your mask is your ability to blend in. Let the campfire die down. We are moving to a place where the water is black and the danger is explosive. The year is 1863. You're on the Combahee River in South Carolina. Congratulations, you're on a raid with General Harriet Tubman. You're a Union soldier, part of the 2nd South Carolina Volunteers. You're on a steam-powered gunboat, the John Adams. The river is narrow, winding through rice plantations. It is night. Fog clings to the water. You're nervous. The river is mined. The Confederates have placed torpedoes, explosive barrels under the surface. If the ship hits one, you all die. But you have a secret weapon, Harriet. She's standing at the bow next to the captain. She has scouts, men who used to be enslaved on these very banks. They have crept through the marshes at night and marked where the torpedoes are. She guides the ship through the minefield like she is walking down a city street. Then the whistle blows. It is the signal. Chaos erupts, but it is a joyful chaos. From the banks, hundreds of enslaved people come running. They have heard the whistle. They know it means freedom. They're carrying everything they own. Bundles of clothes, chickens, pigs, children. They are wading into the water. Some are swimming. They are grabbing the sides of the boat. You reach down. You pull them up. Your arms burn from the effort. You pull a woman holding a set of iron pots. You pull a man carrying a squealing pig. You pull until the deck is packed so tight you can't move. Over 700 people are freed in a single night. It is the largest liberation of enslaved people in American history until the end of the war. Behind you, the plantations are burning. The mansions, the rice mills, the storehouses. Tubman ordered them torched. It is a strategic strike against the Confederate economy. You look at Harriet. She is small, wrapped in a simple coat. She doesn't look like a general, but she commands the respect of every man on this boat. Survival here was about intel. It was about knowing the river better than the people who claimed to own it. It was about turning the landscape of slavery into a highway of freedom. Let the steam whistle fade. We are going to a place of speed and adrenaline. The year is 1875. You are in Louisville, Kentucky. Congratulations. You are a jockey. You are Oliver Lewis. You are sitting atop a horse named Aristides. You are at the starting line of the very first Kentucky Derby. You are black. In fact, 13 of the 15 jockeys in this race are black. Horse racing is the most popular sport in America, and black athletes dominate it. You grew up in the stables. You know horses better than you know people. The bell rings. The gate opens. You are a part of the wind. You are crouched high over the horse's neck, your knees absorbing the shock of the gallop. You are moving at 40 miles per hour on a 1,000-pound animal. It is violent. The other jockeys are shouting. Whips are cracking. Mud kicks up into your face, blinding you. You have to trust the horse. You have to feel the rhythm of his stride. You hold back. You let the other horse, Volcano, set the pace. You wait. You feel Aristides wanting to run, wanting to chase. You hold him. Patience. Then, the home stretch. You loosen the reins. Go, you whisper. The horse surges. You fly past Volcano. The crowd is roaring. You cross the finish line. You have won the first derby. But survival in this sport is brutal. You have to starve yourself to make weight. You eat an orange and a piece of dry toast for dinner. You wrap yourself in wool blankets and sit in a sauna to sweat out water weight. You're constantly dehydrated, dizzy, and the racism is coming. As the money in horse racing grows, white jockeys want in. They start to box you out. They whip your horse during races. They crowd you into the rails. Owners stop hiring you. Within 20 years, black jockeys will be banned from the sport they built. But for this moment, in the winner's circle, with the roses around your horse's neck, you are the king of the track. Survival here was about balance. Balancing on a moving animal. Balancing your weight. Balancing your ambition against a world that wanted to push you off. Let the cheers fade. We're going to a place of stone and altitude. The year is 1810. You are in Haiti. You are on a mountaintop called Bonnet à l'Évêque. Congratulations. You are building the Citadelle La Ferrière. You are free, but you are afraid. The French might come back. Napoleon might send another fleet. So King Henri Christophe has ordered a fortress to be built. The largest in the Western Hemisphere. You are hauling a cannon. A bronze cannon that weighs 4 tons. You are dragging it up a goat path 3,000 feet above sea level. There are no cranes. There are no trucks. There is only muscle and ropes. You and 50 other men are pulling. You sing to keep the rhythm. Pull, step. Pull, step. The heat is intense. The jungle steam rises around you. But you don't stop. This fortress is your insurance policy. The walls are 13 feet thick. The mortar is mixed with the blood of bulls and molasses to make it stronger. You are mixing it with your bare hands. You stack the cannonballs, 50,000 of them. You build cisterns to hold water for a year-long siege. You build a palace inside the walls for the king. The work is grueling. People die from exhaustion, but you keep building. Because down below, in the blue water of the Caribbean, you can see the horizon. And if a French sail appears, you want to be ready. The fortress is never attacked. Its mere existence is enough. It stands there, a stone giant in the clouds, saying to the world, "We will not be enslaved again." Survival here was about monumental effort. It was about moving mountains to protect your freedom. As you drift off to sleep, you think about the marshal, the scout, the jockey, the builder. They all navigated dangerous terrain. The outlaw's hideout, the mined river, the muddy track, the steep mountain. They use disguise, intelligence, speed, and strength. You are safe in your bed. The night is calm, but the fortress still stands on the mountain. The derby is still run. The river still flows. The history is alive. It is holding you up. Sleep now. The outlaws are caught. The river is crossed. The race is won. The walls are strong. The mountain air of Haiti thins out, replaced by the thick, oily scent of a garage. We are moving to the mid-20th century to a place where speed isn't about horses, but about horsepower. The year is 1923. You're in Indianapolis, Indiana. Congratulations. You're an automotive engineer, but you're also a visionary. You are C.R. Patterson. You started as a blacksmith escaping slavery in Virginia to build carriages in Ohio. But you saw the future coming. You saw the horse fading away. So you pivoted. You retooled your factory. You started building cars. The Patterson Greenfield. You're standing on the factory floor. It is noisy. The clang of metal on metal. The hiss of welding torches. You're inspecting a chassis. It has to be perfect. You are competing with Henry Ford. You are competing with giants. And you are black. You can't get loans from the banks. Suppliers hesitate to sell to you. So you innovate. You build a car that is better, stronger, more reliable. You market it to doctors and travelling salesmen. People who need a vehicle that won't break down on a muddy road. Survival here is about adaptation. It is about seeing the curve in the road before anyone else. It is about building a legacy of steel and rubber that says we belong in the future too. But the Great Depression is coming. The big manufacturers can weather the storm. You cannot. You have to pivot again. You stop making cars and start making buses and trucks. You keep the factory open. You keep your workers paid. You die knowing that you built the only black-owned automobile company in history. Your cars are on the road, driving families to church, driving doctors to patients. They are rolling monuments to your refusal to be obsolete. Let the engine idle. We're going to a place of snow and silence. The year is 1900. You're in the Yukon Territory. Congratulations. You're a buffalo soldier again, but this time you aren't fighting Apaches. You aren't riding a bicycle. You're keeping the peace in the Klondike Gold Rush. You're stationed in Skagway, Alaska. It is a lawless boomtown. It is cold. So cold that your breath freezes on your mustache. You're part of Company L of the 24th Infantry. You're here because the white miners are rioting. They are fighting over claims, over gold, over whiskey. The local police are corrupt or overwhelmed. So the government sent you. You patrol the streets. You are wrapped in buffalo coats. You carry a Krag-Jurgensen rifle. The miners look at you with a mix of fear and respect. They have never seen black men in uniform up here. You don't just police the town, you build the infrastructure. You string telegraph lines through the frozen wilderness. You build roads over mountain passes where avalanches bury men alive. You're also a firefighter. When Skagway burns, and it burns often because the buildings are wood and the heaters are coal, you are the bucket brigade. You save the town that doesn't want you there. Survival here is about discipline in the face of chaos. It is about being the adult in the room when everyone else has gold fever. It is about enduring the long, dark winter nights when the sun doesn't rise for weeks. You leave Alaska when the gold rush fades, but you left a mark. You brought order to the edge of the world. Let the snow fall. We are going to a place of heat and rhythm, but not jazz. This is the rhythm of the drum. The year is 1739. You are near the Stono River in South Carolina. Congratulations. You are Jemmy. You are a leader. You are from the Kingdom of Congo. You are a soldier before you were stolen. You know how to fight. You know how to lead. It is Sunday. The white masters are at church. It is the perfect time. You gather a group of men. You raid a store. You take guns and powder. You start marching south. You are heading for Florida. The Spanish have promised freedom to any enslaved person who makes it to St. Augustine. You beat the drums. Boom, boom. Boom, boom. It is a signal. Other enslaved people hear it. They drop their hoes. They run to join you. Your army grows. 20 men. 50 men. 100. You're fighting a running battle. The militia is chasing you. You stop in a field to rest, to dance, to celebrate your freedom. It is a mistake. The militia catches up. They have horses. They have more guns. The battle is fierce. You fight with the desperation of men who know that capture means death. You fight with the skill of a Congo warrior. Many of you die. Some escape into the woods. You're likely killed. But the Stono Rebellion terrifies the South. It forces them to pass the Negro Act of 1740, restricting assembly, education, and movement. It proves that the system of slavery is fragile. It proves that you are not property. You are prisoners of war. Survival here wasn't about living to old age. It was about living free for one glorious afternoon. It was about striking a blow that would be remembered for centuries. Let the drumbeat fade. We are going to a place of quiet, focused work. The year is 1916. You're in Cleveland, Ohio. Congratulations. You're Garrett Morgan, you're an inventor, you're trapped in a tunnel. An explosion has rocked the Cleveland Waterworks tunnel under Lake Erie. Workers are trapped. The smoke is toxic. The rescuers who went in have died. You grab your invention, the safety hood. It looks like a canvas bag with tubes and a wet sponge. It filters out smoke and gas. You put it on. You grab your brother. You go into the tunnel. The smoke is thick. You can't see, but you can breathe. You find the survivors. You drag them out one by one. You save lives. The newspapers report the rescue, but they don't mention your name. They don't mention that a black man invented the gas mask that will save thousands of soldiers in WWI. They call you a coloured man. It hurts, but you don't stop. You invent the traffic light. You invent hair-straightening products. You become wealthy. You start a newspaper. Survival here was about ingenuity. It was about solving problems that others couldn't. It was about saving the people who wouldn't shake your hand. As you drift off to sleep, you think about the car maker, the soldier in the snow, the rebel leader, the inventor. They all face different landscapes, the factory, the tundra, the battlefield, the tunnel. They all use their skills to navigate a hostile world. You're safe in your bed. The night is calm, but the car is still running. The telegraph line is still humming. The drum is still beating. The light is still changing from red to green. The history is alive. It is holding you up. Sleep now. The road is paved. The gold is safe. The rebellion is recorded. The air is clear. The smoke from the Cleveland tunnel clears, leaving only the faint scent of lake water and ozone. We are moving again, leaving the city for the open water, but not the ocean this time. We're on a river, wide and muddy, the artery of a continent. The year is 1838. You're on the Mississippi River. Congratulations. You're a steamboat pilot, but you are enslaved. This is a paradox that defined the antebellum South. The pilot is the most powerful man on the boat. He knows the river, the shifting sandbars, the hidden snags, the currents that can smash a hull in seconds. The captain gives the orders, but the pilot steers the ship. You are standing at the wheel of a massive paddle wheeler. The steam whistle screams. The engines throb beneath your feet, shaking the deck. You are responsible for the lives of hundreds of passengers and tons of cargo. You have memorized every bend of the river from St. Louis to New Orleans. You know how the water looks when it's deep and safe, blue, and when it's shallow and deadly, brown ripples. You know how to read the boils, the swirling eddies that indicate an obstruction underwater. You're enslaved, yet you earn a wage, sometimes split with your owner, sometimes kept in secret. You travel freely. You meet people from the north. You hear whispers of abolition, but the river is treacherous. Boilers explode frequently, scalding men to death in an instant. Collisions happen in the fog. Fires sweep through the wooden decks. One night you make a decision. You are docked in Cincinnati, a border city. The river is the line between slavery and freedom. You wait until the ship is quiet. The captain is asleep. The crew is in the galley. You slip over the side. The water is cold. You swim for the Ohio shore. You don't look back. You leave the wheel, the steam, the power. You trade the prestige of the pilot house for the uncertainty of freedom. You survive by becoming a conductor on the Underground Railroad. You use your knowledge of the river to help others cross. You're no longer steering a steamboat, you are steering souls. Survival here was about mastering the very thing that enslaved you, the economic engine of the South, and using that mastery to escape it. Let the paddle wheel churn fade. We're going to a place of wind and wire. The year is 1935. You're in Ethiopia. Congratulations, you're a pilot. But you aren't American. You're John Robinson, the Brown Condor. You are from Mississippi. You were inspired by Bessie Coleman. You wanted to fly, but flight schools in the US rejected you, so you built your own plane. You taught yourself. Then you went to the Tuskegee Institute to teach others, but now Italy is invading Ethiopia. Mussolini wants an empire. He has bombers, tanks, and poison gas. Ethiopia has spears and old rifles. You volunteer. The Emperor Haile Selassie makes you the commander of the Ethiopian Air Force. It sounds grand. But the Air Force is a handful of old biplanes. They're unarmed. They're falling apart. You fly reconnaissance missions. You fly through clouds of mustard gas that the Italians are spraying from the air. The gas blisters your skin. It blinds you. But you keep flying. You're unarmed, but you're dangerous. You spot the Italian columns. You drop messages to the Ethiopian troops on the ground. You ferry dignitaries. You're the eyes of the resistance. You're shot at constantly. Your plane is riddled with bullet holes. You patch them with fabric and dope. You witness the horrors of modern war. Villages burned, civilians gassed. You tell the world. You give interviews to the international press. You become a symbol of black resistance against fascism. When Ethiopia falls, you return to America. You return to the Tuskegee Institute. You train the pilots who will become the Tuskegee Airmen. You teach them what you learned in The Skies Over Africa. That a plane doesn't care about the colour of your skin, only the steadiness of your hand. Survival here was about global solidarity. It was about seeing a fight for freedom on the other side of the world and making it your own. Let the biplane engines sputter out. We're going to a place of ink and anger. The year is 1829. You are in Boston. Congratulations. You are David Walker. You own a used clothing store. It is a hub of activity. Sailors, dock workers and travellers come in to buy coats and boots. But you are selling something more dangerous than clothes. You are sewing pamphlets into the linings of the coats. You have written appeal to the coloured citizens of the world. It is a fiery, radical document. It calls for enslaved people to rise up and fight for their freedom. It predicts divine judgment on America if it does not end slavery. It is terrifying to the white South. Governors put a price on your head. They demand your arrest. They try to ban the pamphlet, but you have a distribution network. The sailors. You give the coats to black sailors heading to Charleston, Savannah, New Orleans. They wear the coats. When they get to port, they rip open the lining. They pass the pamphlets to literate enslaved people, who read them to others in secret meetings deep in the woods. Your words are spreading like a virus. They are sparking hope and rebellion. You know they're coming for you. Friends tell you to flee to Canada. You refuse. I will stand my ground, you say. Somebody must die in this cause. I may be doomed to the stake and the fire, or to the scaffold tree, but it is not in me to falter if I can promote the work of emancipation. You die suddenly in 1830. Was it poison? Was it tuberculosis? No one knows, but your words live on. They influence Frederick Douglass, William Lloyd Garrison, Nat Turner. Survival here was about planting seeds you would never see grow. It was about weaponizing the written word. Let the rustle of the pamphlet fade. We are going to a place of rhythm and endurance. The year is 1960. You're in Nashville, Tennessee. Congratulations. You're a student. You're Diane Nash. You're young, beautiful, and terrified. You're sitting at a lunch counter. It is a simple act. You ordered a sandwich, but the white waitress refuses to serve you. The manager tells you to leave. You stay. Then the mob comes. White teenagers, angry men. They pour ketchup on your head. They put out cigarettes on your back. They pull you off the stool and beat you. You don't fight back. You have been trained in non-violence by James Lawson. You curl into a ball to protect your organs. You do not strike back. The police come. They arrest you, not the mob. You go to jail. You refuse bail. Jail? No bail. You fill the cells. The city can't function if thousands of students are in jail. You organise the freedom rides. When the buses are burned in Alabama and the riders are beaten, the government wants to stop. It's too dangerous, they say. You pick up the phone. You call the Department of Justice. We are coming, you say. We signed our wills last night. You get on the bus. You ride into the heart of the violence. You force the federal government to protect you. You desegregate interstate travel. Survival here was about disciplined courage. It was about using your body as a wrench to stop the gears of segregation. It was about looking death in the face and saying, "We are not stopping." As you drift off to sleep, you think about the pilot, the writer, the student, the steamboat man. They all navigated currents. The current of the river, the current of war, the current of ideas, the current of history. They didn't just drift, they steered. You are safe in your bed, the river flows, the plane flies, the book is read, the counter is open, sleep now, the course is set, the message is delivered, the ride is over, the lunch is served. The lunch counter in Nashville empties, the echoes of the sit-ins fading into history. We are moving again, leaving the civil rights struggle for a battlefield much older and much colder. The year is 1776. You are on the banks of the Delaware River. Congratulations. You are a soldier in the Continental Army, and you are black. History books often forget you. They paint the Revolution as a war of white farmers. But look at the boat. Look at the famous painting of Washington crossing the Delaware. The man rowing at Washington's knee. That is Prince Whipple, an enslaved man fighting for a liberty he does not possess. You are shivering. It is Christmas night. A nor'easter is blowing snow and sleet into your face. You're wearing rags. Some men have no shoes. They wrap their feet in burlap sacks. You can see bloody footprints in the snow. You are rowing a Durham boat, a flat-bottomed cargo vessel used to haul iron ore. It is heavy, awkward. The river is choked with ice floes. Great jagged chunks of ice crash against the hull, threatening to crush the boat. You pull the oar. Your hands are numb, blistered. The water freezes on your coat. Washington stands in the prow, silent, wrapped in his cloak. He is gambling everything on this surprise attack. You're part of the 1st Rhode Island Regiment, the Black Regiment. You're a mix of free men and enslaved men who were promised freedom if they enlisted. You fight because you believe that the rhetoric of revolution, all men are created equal, might eventually include you. You land on the Jersey shore. You march 9 miles to Trenton. The sleet turns to rain, soaking your gunpowder. Use the bayonet, Washington orders. The town must be taken. You charge into Trenton. You catch the Hessians sleeping off their Christmas celebration. The battle is short, sharp, and chaotic. You fire your musket, then use the bayonet. You capture nearly 1,000 enemy soldiers. It is the victory that saves the revolution. But survival after the war is the real battle. You are promised freedom, but many of you are returned to slavery. The country you helped birth writes a constitution that counts you as 3/5 of a person. You survive by holding on to the truth. You know you fought. You know you bled. You know that the nation's freedom was bought with your labour, both in the fields and on the battlefield. Let the river ice melt. We're going to a place of iron rails and steam. The year is 1870. You're in West Virginia. Congratulations. You're a legend. You're John Henry. You're a steel-driving man. You work for the C&O Railroad, building the Big Bend Tunnel through the mountains. It is grueling work. You swing a 10-pound hammer all day, driving steel drills into solid rock so that explosives can be placed. You work in a rhythm, swing, clang, turn the drill, swing, clang. The tunnel is dark, choked with silica dust. Men die from rockfalls, from premature explosions, from exhaustion. Then comes the steam drill. The company brings in a machine that can do the work of 10 men. They say it will replace you. They say you are obsolete. You challenge the machine. It is a contest of man versus mechanism, flesh and blood versus steel and steam. You stand side by side with the drill. The contest begins. You swing your hammers, one in each hand. You find a rhythm that is faster than a heartbeat. You drive the steel. You don't stop for water. You don't stop to wipe the sweat from your eyes. The steam drill jams. It breaks down, but you keep going. You win. You drive 14 feet. The machine drives 9, but the effort kills you. Your heart bursts. You die with your hammer in your hand. The story becomes a folk song sung by workers across the country. It is a tragedy, but it is also a triumph. It asserts the dignity of human labour in the face of industrialization. It says that a man is more than a machine. Survival here wasn't about living forever. It was about proving your worth. It was about leaving a legacy that says, I was strong. I was here. Let the hammering fade. We're going to a place of high stakes and high fashion. The year is 1905. You're in Indianapolis. Congratulations. You are Madam C.J. Walker. You were born Sarah Breedlove, the first child in your family born free. But your life has been hard. You were orphaned at 7, married at 14, widowed at 20 with a child. You worked as a washerwoman, your hands raw from lye soap, your back aching from bending over tubs. But you have an idea. You suffered from hair loss due to scalp ailments, common among black women who worked in harsh conditions. You experimented with home remedies. You developed a formula, Madam Walker's Wonderful Hair Grower. You don't just sell a product, you sell a lifestyle. You travel the country giving demonstrations. You train Walker agents, thousands of black women who sell your products door to door. You give them economic independence. You teach them to be businesswomen. You become the first female self-made millionaire in America. You build a mansion, Villa Lawaro, in Irvington, New York, right next to the Rockefellers. You drive a luxury car, you wear furs, but you don't forget where you came from. You donate thousands to the NACP, to anti-lynching campaigns, to schools. You use your wealth to fight for justice. Survival here was about transformation. It was about taking your own pain, the loss of your hair, your poverty, and turning it into an empire. It was about lifting others as you climbed. Let the scent of hair pomade fade. We are going to a place of quiet courage. The year is 1960. You're in New Orleans? Congratulations. You're 6 years old. You're Ruby Bridges. You're walking to school. But it isn't a normal walk. You're surrounded by federal marshals. They're tall men in suits with guns. You're integrating William Frantz Elementary School. The street is filled with a screaming mob. White adults are yelling slurs at a 6-year-old girl. They are holding signs. One woman holds a black doll in a coffin. You're terrified, but you don't show it. Your mother told you to be brave. You walk looking straight ahead. You pray. Please God, forgive these people because they don't know what they're doing. You get into the school. The white parents have pulled their children out. You are the only student in your class. Your teacher, Mrs. Henry, is white, but she is kind. She teaches you as if the room were full. You eat lunch alone. You play at recess alone, inside, because it isn't safe outside. You endure this for a year. Every day the gauntlet. Every day the isolation. But you break the barrier. The next year, more black children come. The white children return. The school integrates. Survival here was about innocence as armour. It was about a child carrying the weight of a nation's sin on her small shoulders and refusing to buckle. As you drift off to sleep, you think about the rower, the steel driver, the entrepreneur, the schoolgirl. They all faced mountains. The ice of the Delaware, the rock of the tunnel, the poverty of the washboard, the hate of the mob. They all climbed. You're safe in your bed. The river flows. The train runs. The business thrives. The school bell rings. Sleep now. The crossing is made. The tunnel is dug. The empire is built. The lesson is learned. The schoolyard of New Orleans fades, the sound of the marshal's footsteps replaced by the steady, rhythmic thwack of an axe biting into wood. We are moving back into the wilderness, but this isn't a forest, you know. This is the frontier of the mind and the body. The year is 1866. You're in Texas. Congratulations. You are a Buffalo Soldier again, but this time you aren't patrolling. You are building. You are constructing Fort Davis. You are hacking civilization out of the scrubland. You are cutting limestone blocks from the quarries. You are hauling timber from the mountains. You are building the barracks you will sleep in, the stables for your horses, the hospital where you will be treated for dysentery and gunshot wounds. The sun is relentless. The dust chokes you. The water is scarce. But you take pride in the work. You lay the stones perfectly straight. You whitewash the walls until they gleam. This fort is a symbol. It says, "We are the United States Army, and we are here to stay." But the irony is sharp. You are building a fort to protect settlers who despise you. You are protecting stagecoaches that would force you to ride on the roof. You are fighting indigenous people who call you Buffalo Soldiers out of respect, while your own government calls you expendable. Survival here is about professionalism. It is about doing your duty so well that even your enemies have to salute you. It is about building a legacy of stone and honour in a land that wants to forget you. Let the sound of the pickaxe fade. We are going to a place of silence and code. The year is 1942. You are in the Pacific Ocean. Congratulations. You are a Navajo code talker. You are a Marine. You are on an island you had never heard of. Guadalcanal, Saipan, Iwo Jima. You are carrying a radio that weighs 30 pounds. You are running through the jungle under fire. Mortar shells are exploding around you. Snipers are in the trees. But your weapon isn't a rifle. It is your language. The Japanese have broken every code the Americans invented, but they can't break Navajo. It is a complex tonal language, never written down, spoken only by a few thousand people in the American Southwest. You speak into the radio. Tsela. Bird. That means air. Aka. Oil. That means fuel. Genie. Chicken hawk. That means dive bomber. You're transmitting orders for airstrikes, troop movements, artillery barrages. You're speaking the language your teachers tried to beat out of you in boarding school. Now, that language is saving the war. You're guarded by a white soldier whose job is to protect you, and to kill you if capture is imminent. The code cannot be captured. You survive the beaches. You survive the Banzai charges. You survive the malaria. When you come home, you're sworn to secrecy. You cannot tell your family what you did. You cannot tell your tribe. For decades, your heroism is a classified secret. Survival here was about reclaiming your culture. It was about taking the thing that was used to shame you, your language, and turning it into an unbreakable shield. Let the radio static fade. We are going to a place of cold wind and high altitude. The year is 1909. You're at the North Pole again. But we aren't with Matthew Henson this time. We are with the Inuit who guided him. Congratulations. You are Uta. You're driving the sled for Peary and Henson. You built the igloos. You hunted the seals. You navigated the pressure ridges. You look at these men from the south. They are obsessed with a spot on the ice where all the lines meet. To you, it is just ice. The same ice you have lived on for thousands of years. You don't care about planting a flag. You care about getting back alive. You care about the dogs. You care about the wind. You watch them celebrate. You watch them take photos. You smile, but you keep your mittens on. Survival here is about perspective. It is about knowing that the land owns you, not the other way around. It is about respecting the ice, not conquering it. Let the Arctic wind die down. We're going to a place of heat and glass. The year is 1950. You're in a laboratory in Chicago. Congratulations. You are Percy Julian. You're a chemist. You are a genius. But you couldn't get a job at a university because you are black. So you work for a paint company, Glidden. You're extracting magic from soybeans. You discover how to synthesize cortisone from soy oil. Cortisone treats rheumatoid arthritis. Before you, it was extracted from the bile of slaughtered oxen. It was incredibly expensive. Only the rich could afford it. You make it cheap. You make it available to everyone. You relieve the pain of millions. You also figure out how to mass-produce synthetic progesterone. You lay the groundwork for the birth control pill. But your life is a battle. Your home in Oak Park, a white suburb, is firebombed. Twice. You have to guard your family with a shotgun. You're a world-famous scientist and you have to sit on your porch with a weapon to protect your children from your neighbours. Survival here was about alchemy. It was about turning a humble bean into medicine. It was about turning hatred into resolve. As you drift off to sleep, you think about the builder, the code talker, the guide, the chemist. They all possess secret knowledge. The knowledge of stone, the knowledge of language, the knowledge of ice, the knowledge of molecules. They use that knowledge to change the world. You're safe in your bed. The fort still stands. The code remains unbroken. The ice drifts. The medicine works. Sleep now. The structure is sound. The message is received. The path is clear. The pain is gone. The fumes of the chemistry lab dissipate, replaced by the clean, sharp scent of sawdust and varnish. We're moving from the microscopic world of molecules to the expansive world of the open ocean, but not as a passenger. The year is 1838. You're in New Bedford, Massachusetts. Congratulations. You are Lewis Temple. You are a blacksmith. You are free. You run a shop on the waterfront, crafting tools for the whaling fleet. You listen to the whalers complain. They talk about the one that got away. They talk about how the harpoons pull out of the whale's blubber, allowing the Leviathan to escape. You think about this. You understand metal. You understand leverage. You invent the Temple toggle iron. It looks like a standard harpoon, but the head is hinged. When it penetrates the whale and tension is applied to the rope, the head pivots sideways, creating a T shape inside the blubber. It locks in. It doesn't pull out. You never patent it. You just make it, and you sell it. Your invention changes the industry. It makes whaling brutally efficient. It makes captains rich. It makes New Bedford the city that lit the world. But you don't get rich. You make a decent living, but you trip on a plank one night, get an infection, and die. Your legacy is in the iron. Every ship that leaves the harbour carries your genius in its hull. Survival here was about solving a problem. It was about listening to the needs of your community and forging a solution with your own hands. Let the sound of the anvil fade. We are going to a place of quiet dignity and legal brilliance. The year is 1954. You're in the Supreme Court. Congratulations. You're Thurgood Marshall. You're arguing Brown versus Board of Education. You're attacking the doctrine of separate but equal. You aren't shouting. You're methodical. You use sociological data. You use the doll test, showing how black children prefer white dolls because segregation has taught them self-hatred. You force the 9 justices to look at the psychological damage of racism. You're exhausted. You've travelled thousands of miles, stayed in unsafe hotels, faced death threats in small southern towns. You have argued case after case, chipping away at the wall of Jim Crow. And today, the wall falls. Chief Justice Earl Warren reads the unanimous opinion. In the field of public education, the doctrine of separate but equal has no place. You have won the greatest legal victory of the century. But you know the work isn't done. The law has changed, but hearts haven't. You will spend the rest of your life fighting to enforce the ruling. Survival here was about patience and precision. It was about using the Constitution as a sword. It was about believing in the rule of law even when the law had failed you for centuries. Let the gavel strike. We are going to a place of dust and speed. The year is 1923. You are in Kansas City. Congratulations. You are Cool Papa Bell. You are a baseball player in the Negro Leagues. You are fast. So fast they say you can turn off the light switch and be in bed before the room gets dark. You play for the St. Louis Stars, the Pittsburgh Crawfords, the Homestead Grays. You travel on a bus that smells of diesel and sweat. You play 3 games a day. You eat peanut butter sandwiches because the diners won't serve you. You sleep on the bus because the hotels won't take you. But on the field, you are magic. You steal bases standing up. You score from first on a single. You play against white all-stars in exhibition games, and you beat them. You show them what they are missing by keeping the league segregated. You play for the love of the game. You play for the crowds in their Sunday best. You play for the pride of a community that has been shut out of the national pastime. You are eventually inducted into the Hall of Fame, but you never got to play in the majors. You were too old by the time Jackie Robinson broke the barrier. Survival here was about joy. It was about playing the game better than anyone else, even when the world wasn't watching. It was about knowing your own worth. Let the crack of the bat fade. We're going to a place of shadows and signals. The year is 1862. You are in Virginia. Congratulations. You are Robert Smalls. You are enslaved. You work on a Confederate transport ship, the Planter. You are the pilot. You have a plan. A crazy, impossible plan. You wait until the white officers go ashore for a party. You gather the enslaved crew. You bring your families on board in the dead of night. You put on the captain's straw hat. You stand in the pilot house. You guide the ship away from the dock. You have to pass 4 Confederate forts. You give the secret whistle signals. You wave to the sentries, mimicking the captain's posture in the dark. They let you pass. You reach the Union blockade. You lower the Confederate flag and raise a white bedsheet. You surrender the ship to the US Navy. You are a hero. You meet President Lincoln. You convince him to let black men fight. You become the captain of the ship you stole. After the war, you buy your former master's house. You get elected to Congress. Survival here was about audacity. It was about taking the biggest risk of your life and executing it with nerves of steel. It was about turning a ship of slavery into an ark of freedom. As you drift off to sleep, you think about the blacksmith, the lawyer, the ball player, the captain. They all seized the moment. The hinge of the harpoon, the argument in the court, the steal of the base, the theft of the ship. They saw an opening and they took it. You are safe in your bed. The night is still, but the iron holds. The law stands. The record remains. The ship sails. Sleep now. The catch is secured. The verdict is unanimous. The run is scored. The freedom is won. The steam of the Planter dissipates into the night air. We are moving again, this time to a place where the ground itself is a mystery, and survival depends on reading the earth like a book. The year is 1900. You are in the high deserts of New Mexico. Congratulations. You are George McJunkin. You are a cowboy, yes. You ride the range, roping cattle, sleeping under the stars. You were born enslaved in Texas, but you came west after the war. You taught yourself to read. You taught yourself to play the violin. You are a curiosity to the other cowboys because you're always looking down. You're looking at the ground. You're fascinated by bones. One day, after a heavy rainstorm near Folsom, you find something. A deep arroyo has washed out, revealing massive bones. They are too big for a cow, too big for a buffalo. You dig them out. You find something else. A stone spear point, fluted and elegant, lodged between the ribs of the giant animal. You know this is important. You try to tell people. You tell the local scientists. They ignore you. Just a dead cow, they say. Just an Indian arrowhead. But you persist. You keep the bones. You keep the point. You talk to anyone who will listen. It takes years. After you die, scientists finally come to investigate the site you found. They realize you were right. The bones are from an extinct species of bison that died out 10,000 years ago. The spear point proves that humans were in North America thousands of years earlier than anyone believed. It is the Folsom Point. It rewrites the history of the continent. Survival here was about curiosity. It was about trusting your own eyes when the experts told you you were wrong. It was about knowing the land so intimately that you could see its secrets. Let the dry desert wind fade. We are going to a place of smoke and fire, but not of destruction, of creation. The year is 1910. You're in the kitchen of the White House. Congratulations. You're a chef, but not just any chef. You are Hercules Posey, in spirit. Or perhaps you are channeling the legacy of James Hemmings. But right now, you are simply the best cook in America. You are creating American cuisine. You take the ingredients of the enslaved, cornmeal, pork, greens, yams, and you elevate them. You mix them with French techniques, Native American spices, and African flavors. You're inventing Southern food, which is really just American food. Fried chicken, gumbo, jambalaya, Hoppin' John. You work in a hot kitchen, hidden from the guests. You send out platters of food that make presidents swoon. They praise the meal, but they rarely ask to meet the chef. You are the ghost in the machine of American hospitality. You feed the nation that enslaves you or segregates you. But in the kitchen, you are the master. You control the fire. You control the knife. You pass down recipes orally, a culinary history that is never written down but never forgotten. Survival here was about nourishment. It was about turning scraps into a feast. It was about feeding the soul of a people through the food on their plate. Let the aroma of spices fade. We're going to a place of cold steel and high altitude. The year is 1944. You are in the Alps. Congratulations. You're a soldier in the 92nd Infantry Division, the Buffalo Soldiers of WT. You're fighting the Nazis in Italy. The terrain is brutal. Mountains, snow, narrow passes. The enemy holds the high ground. You're advancing up a hill under machine gun fire. You're cold, wet, and terrified. But you keep moving. You're led by Vernon Baker. He's a lieutenant. He takes out 3 machine gun nests, an observation post, and a dugout. He leads his men through a minefield. He is a hero. But the army doesn't give medals of honor to black soldiers, not in this war. He waits 50 years. In 1997, President Clinton finally hangs the medal around his neck. He is the only living recipient. Survival here was about delayed justice. It was about fighting for a country that wouldn't fight for you and then waiting half a century for a thank you. Let the mountain wind die down. We're going to a place of quiet determination. The year is 1955. You're in a library in Alabama. Congratulations. You are authoring Lucy. You have been accepted to the University of Alabama. You're the first black student. You walk onto campus. A mob of 3,000 people is waiting for you. They are throwing rocks, eggs, mud. They are chanting, "Keep Bama white." You're alone. You walk through the gauntlet. You go to class. The university expels you for your own safety. It takes decades for them to apologize. They eventually name a building after you. Survival here was about being the first. It was about walking into the fire so that others could walk through the ashes later. As you drift off to sleep, you think about the cowboy archaeologist, the chef, the soldier, the student. They all uncovered something. The history of the land, the flavor of a nation, the courage of a regiment, the hate of a mob. They refused to look away. You are safe in your bed. The night is quiet, but the spear point is in the museum. The recipe is in the cookbook. The medal is on the wall. The building bears the name. Sleep now. The discovery is made. The meal is served. The hill is taken. The door is open. The roar of the mob outside the university fades, replaced by the soft scratching of a pen on parchment. We are moving back in time, to a place where words are the only currency that matters, and the survival of an entire culture hangs on the tip of a quill. The year is 1773. You're in Boston. Congratulations. You're Phyllis Wheatley. You were stolen from West Africa as a child, named after the slave ship that brought you, the Phyllis. You were frail, sickly, but you had a mind like a diamond. You learned English in 16 months, then Latin, then Greek. You started writing poetry. You are standing before a tribunal of 18 white men, governors, judges, ministers. They don't believe a black girl could write such beautiful verse. They think you're a fraud. You have to prove your intellect, you have to recite your poems, explain your allusions to Virgil and Homer, defend your genius. It is a trial for your life in a way. If you fail, you are just another piece of property. If you succeed, you are a prodigy. You are undeniable proof of black humanity. You pass the test. They sign a document attesting to your authorship. You become the first African American to publish a book of poetry. Survival here was about intellect as a weapon. It was about mastering the language of the oppressor better than they knew it themselves. It was about writing yourself into existence. Let the courtroom fade. We are going to a place of wind and canvas. The year is 1920. You're in the sky over Chicago. Congratulations. You are Bessie Coleman again, but this time we are in the cockpit with you. You are performing a loop the loop. The ground is rushing up at you. The sky is spinning. The engine is screaming. You are Queen Bess. You refused to perform at segregated air shows. You told the promoters, if my people can't come through the front gate, I don't fly. You forced them to integrate. For one afternoon, the sky belonged to everyone. Survival here was about leverage. It was about knowing that you were the star and using that power to change the rules on the ground. Let the engine noise fade. We're going to a place of quiet earth and deep roots. The year is 1890. You're in Tuskegee, Alabama. Congratulations. You're George Washington Carver. You're a scientist, but you don't look like one. You wear a flower in your lapel. You talk to plants. You're walking through a field of cotton that has been destroyed by the boll weevil. The farmers are desperate. Their land is ruined. You tell them to plant peanuts. Peanuts? They asked. Who eats peanuts? You go into your lab. You invent 300 uses for the peanut. Milk, oil, paper, soap, ink. You create a market where none existed. You save the southern economy. You never patent your agricultural discoveries. God gave them to me, you say. How can I sell them to someone else? Survival here was about generosity. It was about healing the land that had been broken by slavery and cotton. It was about finding value in the humble things. Let the smell of soil fade. We're going to a place of cold steel and hot jazz. The year is 1917. You're in East St. Louis. Congratulations. You're a survivor of a pogrom. White mobs are attacking black neighborhoods. They are angry about labor competition. They are burning houses. You hide in a basement. You hear the footsteps above you. You smell the smoke. You survive. You move to Chicago. You bring the music with you. The blues of the Mississippi Delta, the ragtime of St. Louis. You help create the Chicago Blues, Muddy Waters, Howlin' Wolf. You turn the trauma of the riot into a sound that shakes the world. Survival here was about alchemy, turning pain into art, turning a scream into a song. As you drift off to sleep, you think about the poet, the pilot, the scientist, the musician. They all took what they were given, a pen, a plane, a peanut, a guitar, and used it to change the world. You're safe in your bed. The night is quiet, but the poem is read. The plane flies, the crop grows, the song plays. Sleep now, the test is passed, the gate is open, the land is healed, the music never stops. The blues notes of Chicago fade into the rhythmic clack-clack of a telegraph key. We are moving to the frontier of information, where survival depends on the speed of a message. The year is 1863. You're in the Union Army headquarters in Virginia. Congratulations. You're a spy. You are Mary Bowser. You were born enslaved, freed by the Van Loo family, and educated in the North. But you came back. You returned to Richmond, the heart of the Confederacy. You are working as a servant in the Confederate White House. You're serving Jefferson Davis his dinner. You play the part perfectly. You act dim-witted. You shuffle. You mumble. Davis discusses military strategy right in front of you. He leaves maps on his desk. You have a photographic memory. You memorize the troop movements. You memorize the supply lines. At night, you sneak out. You meet with Elizabeth Van Loo, your former owner who is now a Union spymaster. You pass the information. You're living in the lion's den. One slip, one moment of breaking character, and you will be hanged. But you are the invisible woman. They don't see you. They see a servant. They don't know they are looking at the most dangerous weapon the Union has. Survival here was about underestimate. It was about using the racism of the enemy against them. It was about hiding your brilliance behind a mask of servitude. Let the telegraph click fade. We are going to a place of salt and canvas. The year is 1896. You are in the Atlantic Ocean. Congratulations. You are Joshua Slocum's cook. No, you are the captain. You are William Shorey, the Black Ahab. You are the captain of a whaling ship, the John and Winthrop. You are based in San Francisco. You command a multiracial crew. You sail to the Sea of Okhotsk, to the Bering Sea. You hunt the bowhead whale. You're a master navigator. You survive typhoons that sink other ships. You navigate through ice fields that would crush a lesser hull. When you return to port, you are a celebrity. You are wealthy. You live in a mansion in Oakland. But the industry is dying. Petroleum is replacing whale oil. The age of sail is ending. You retire with dignity. You die in your bed, not at sea. Survival here was about command. It was about proving that a black man could lead men into the most dangerous waters on Earth and bring them home safely. Let the ocean swell calm. We are going to a place of chalk dust and discipline. The year is 1865. You're in Georgia. Congratulations. You're a teacher in a freedmen's school. The war is over. Slavery is dead. But ignorance is the new enemy. You're teaching formerly enslaved people to read. Men and women who are 60, 70 years old. They walk miles to your schoolhouse. They sit on rough benches. Their hands, scarred from picking cotton, struggle to hold a pencil. But they are hungry for the word. They know that literacy is freedom. You face threats. The Klan burns schoolhouses. They beat teachers. You keep a pistol in your desk drawer. You teach them to read the Bible, to read contracts so they won't be cheated, to read the ballot so they can vote. Survival here was about enlightenment. It was about lighting a candle in a dark room and refusing to let anyone blow it out. Let the school bell ring. We are going to a place of high speed and rubber. The year is 1920. You are in Indianapolis. Congratulations. You are Charlie Wiggins. You are a mechanic. You build race cars out of junkyard parts. You are the Negro Speed King. You want to race in the Indy 500? They won't let you. White drivers only. So you create your own league. The Coloured Speedway Association. You race on dirt tracks across the Midwest. You build a car called the Wiggins Special. It is faster than anything the white drivers have. You're so good that wealthy white owners hire you to tune their cars for the Indy 500. You pretend to be a janitor so you can get into the pits. You listen to the engines. You know exactly what is wrong just by the sound. You win the Golden Glory sweepstakes 4 times. You are a legend. But racing is dangerous. In 1936, you are involved in a crash. You lose your leg. You never race again. But you mentor young mechanics. You teach them the secrets of the engine. Survival here was about excellence in the shadows. It was about being the best, even when they wouldn't let you on the main stage. As you drift off to sleep, you think about the spy, the captain, the teacher, the racer. They all operated behind enemy lines in a way, behind the lines of the Confederacy, behind the lines of the ice pack, behind the lines of illiteracy, behind the lines of segregation. They infiltrated, they navigated, they illuminated, they accelerated. You're safe in your bed. The night is quiet, but the secret is past. The ship is docked. The book is open. The engine is purring. Sleep now. The intel is good. The course is true. The lesson is learned. The race is run. The roar of the race car engine fades, replaced by the low, rhythmic chanting of a choir. We are moving from the speedway to the sanctuary, but the stakes remain life and death. The year is 1787. You're in Philadelphia. Congratulations. You're Richard Allen. You're a preacher. You were born enslaved, bought your freedom, and became a Methodist minister. You preach at St. George's Methodist Episcopal Church. The congregation is growing largely because of you, but one Sunday you are kneeling in prayer. A white usher taps you on the shoulder. He tells you to get up. You're in the white section. You cannot pray here. You refuse to move until the prayer is finished. Then, you and Absalom Jones lead the black members out of the church. You never go back. You start your own church, Mother Bethlehem. It is the first independent black denomination in the United States. But the challenge isn't just spiritual. In 1793, yellow fever strikes Philadelphia. The city is in panic. The rich flee. The government collapses. Doctors believe falsely that black people are immune. They ask you to help. You organise the black community. You become nurses, gravediggers, cart drivers. You go into the houses where whole families are dead or dying. You clean the vomit. You bury the bodies. You save the city that wouldn't let you pray. But when the fever breaks, they accuse you of stealing from the dead. They smear your name. You fight back with the pen. You publish a pamphlet refuting the lies. You document the heroism of your people. Survival here was about moral leadership. It was about building an institution, the black church, that would become the fortress of the community for centuries. Let the church bells ring. We are going to a place of vast horizons and thundering hooves. The year is 1876. You're in Deadwood, Dakota Territory. Congratulations. You are Nat Love. Deadwood Dick, you're a cowboy. Born enslaved in Tennessee. You headed west at 15. You can ride anything with hair. You can shoot a silver dollar out of the air. You arrive in Deadwood on the 4th of July. There is a rodeo, a contest. Roping, shooting, riding. You enter. You rope, tie, and throw a Mustang in 9 minutes. You win the shooting contest. You win the whole thing. The crowd goes wild. They give you the nickname Deadwood Dick. You write an autobiography. You tell stories about drinking with Billy the Kid, about being captured by Native Americans and escaping on a stolen pony. Some of it is true, some of it is tall tales, but that doesn't matter. You are writing yourself into the mythology of the West. You are refusing to be a footnote. Survival here was about swagger. It was about being the hero of your own story in a world that wanted you to be the villain or the victim. Let the rodeo dust settle. We are going to a place of high intellect and deep roots. The year is 1897. You're in Washington, D.C. Congratulations. You are Alexander Crummell. You're a scholar. You studied at Cambridge. You lived in Liberia for 20 years. Now you are back. You found the American Negro Academy. It is the first organization dedicated to African American arts and letters. You argue that black people must produce their own civilization. Not just labor, but philosophy, literature, art. You mentor W.E.B. Du Bois. You're old, dignified, unbending. You refuse to accept the idea of inferiority. You believe in the talented tenth, the idea that the educated elite must lift up the race. Survival here was about the life of the mind. It was about proving that black intellect was equal to any in the world. Let the lecture hall fade. We are going to a place of steel rails and steam. The year is 1890. You're in Tennessee. Congratulations. You're Casey Jones's fireman. You're Sim Webb. You're in the cab of the locomotive. Casey is the engineer. You are the muscle. You shovel the coal. You keep the pressure up. You're flying down the track. You're behind schedule. Casey pushes the engine to the limit. The whistle screams. You see it. A stalled train on the tracks ahead. "Jump, Sim!" Casey yells. "Jump for your life!" You hesitate. You don't want to leave him. "Jump!" You jump. You hit the gravel. You roll. You are battered, bruised, but alive. The train crashes. Casey dies with one hand on the brake and one hand on the whistle. You survive to tell the story. Without you, Casey Jones is just a wreck. With you, he is a legend. Survival here was about loyalty and the split-second decision. It was about being the witness to tragedy. As you drift off to sleep, you think about the preacher, the cowboy, the scholar, the fireman. They all faced the fire, the fever, the competition, the intellectual debate, the crash. They all stood their ground. You're safe in your bed. The night is quiet, but the church stands. The book is written. The academy exists. The story is told. Sleep now. The fever is broken. The contest is won. The mind is sharp. The jump is made. The steam whistle of the wrecked locomotive echoes one last time, then dissipates into the quiet hum of the night. We are moving now, not by train, but by foot, into a place where the forest is thick and the danger is silent. The year is 1712. You're in the colony of New York. But you aren't in the city. You're in the Hudson Valley. Congratulations. You're an indentured servant, but your contract has no end date because you are enslaved. You work the land for the Dutch patroons. But you have a secret. You know the woods. You know the language of the Mohawks, the Iroquois. You run away. You don't go south or north. You go west, deeper into Iroquois territory. You are welcomed. Not as a servant, but as a person. You learn their ways. You marry into the tribe. You become a translator, a bridge between two worlds that are colliding. You are the Black Indian. You live in a longhouse. You hunt deer. You trade furs. When the British come, they are confused by you. You look like an African, but you dress like a Mohawk. You speak English, Dutch, and Mohawk. You are a diplomat. Survival here was about adaptation. It was about finding a new tribe when the old one was stolen from you. It was about becoming something the world didn't have a name for. Let the forest whisper. We're going to a place of salt spray and courage. The year is 1895. You are on the outer banks of North Carolina. Congratulations. You're a surfman in the United States Life-Saving Service, the precursor to the Coast Guard. You're stationed at the Pea Island Life-Saving Station. You're part of the only all-black crew in the service. Your keeper is Richard Etheridge. A hurricane is raging. The schooner E.S. Newman has run aground. The waves are terrifying. The white crews from other stations say a rescue is impossible. Etheridge says, "The book says we have to go out. It doesn't say we have to come back." You launch the surf boat. You fight the waves. You reach the wreck. You can't use the breeches buoy, a rescue line, because the sea is too rough. So you swim, you tie a line around your waist, you dive into the boiling ocean, you swim to the wreck. You carry the survivors back, one by one, on your shoulders. You save everyone. The captain, his wife, their 3-year-old child. You are heroes, but the service is segregated. You don't get medals. You don't get a parade. You just get dry clothes and a hot meal. It takes 100 years for the Coast Guard to award you the Gold Life-Saving Medal posthumously. Survival here was about duty. It was about being the best sailors on the coast, even when the coast didn't want you. Let the storm pass. We're going to a place of quiet dignity and hidden power. The year is 1950. You're in the White House. Congratulations. You are the butler. You are Alonzo Fields. You served Hoover, Roosevelt, Truman, Eisenhower. You stood in the room while they made decisions that changed the world. You're invisible. You pour the coffee, you clear the plates, you hear everything. The secrets of the atom bomb, the strategy for D-Day, the plans for civil rights legislation. You keep a diary. You write down what you see. You see the humanity of the presidents. You see their fears. You are a witness to history from the inside. You serve with grace. You never betray a confidence, but you have your own opinions. You quietly advocate for your people. You leave a newspaper open to a story about lynching on the president's desk. You make sure he sees it. Survival here was about subtlety. It was about influencing the most powerful men in the world without saying a word. Let the clinking of china fade. We're going to a place of wide open road and horsepower. The year is 1930. You're on a motorcycle. Congratulations. You are Bessie Stringfield, the motorcycle queen of Miami. You are a black woman riding a Harley-Davidson across the Jim Crow South. You are alone. You toss a penny onto a map. Wherever it lands, that's where you go. You ride through towns where they have never seen a black woman on a motorcycle. They stare. Sometimes they chase you. You outrun them. You sleep on your bike at gas stations because hotels won't take you. You perform stunts at carnivals to earn money. You ride the wall of death. During Sommerpassum, you become a civilian courier for the army. You carry documents between bases on your bike. You encounter racism, sexism, and bad roads. You overcome them all. You ride into your 80s. You own 27 Harleys in your lifetime. Survival here was about pure, unadulterated freedom. It was about the wind in your face and the engine between your legs. It was about refusing to be afraid. As you drift off to sleep, you think about the diplomat, the surfman, the butler, the rider. They all cross boundaries. The boundary of culture, the boundary of the storm, the boundary of power, the boundary of fear. They were explorers. You're safe in your bed. The night is calm, but the longhouse is warm. The lifeboat is launched. The diary is written. The motorcycle roars. Sleep now. The rescue is made. The secret is safe. The road is open. The roar of the Harley-Davidson fades into the distance, replaced by the clink-clank of metal tools on a workbench. We are moving from the open road to the quiet precision of a workshop, where the future is being invented one gear at a time. The year is 1880. You're in Lynn, Massachusetts. Congratulations. You are Jan Matzeliger. You're an inventor. You were born in Suriname, the son of a Dutch engineer and an enslaved African woman. You came to America with nothing but your skills. You work in a shoe factory. You watch the lasters, the men who attach the sole of the shoe to the upper part. It is slow, painstaking work. A skilled laster can only make 50 pairs of shoes a day. You think there must be a better way. You start tinkering in your spare time. You use scraps of metal, old cigar boxes, whatever you can find. You work at night, by candlelight, after your shift is over. You're mocked. People say a machine can't replace the human hand for such delicate work, but you persist. You invent the lasting machine. It can make 700 pairs of shoes a day. It revolutionizes the footwear industry. It makes shoes affordable for everyone, not just the rich. But the work kills you. The long hours, the coal dust, the lack of sleep. You contract tuberculosis. You die at 37. Survival here was about leaving a mark. It was about solving a puzzle that stumped the world. It was about making sure that even if your life was short, your impact would last forever. Let the factory hum fade. We are going to a place of wide rivers and hidden trails. The year is 1804. You are in the American West. Congratulations. You are York. You are an enslaved man, but you are also an explorer. You are part of the Lewis and Clark expedition. You are the first black man to cross the continent north of Mexico. You carry a rifle. You hunt for the expedition. You paddle the canoes. You negotiate with Native American tribes. The tribes are fascinated by you. The Mandan, the Hidatsa, the Shoshone. They call you Big Medicine. They think you are powerful because of your skin color. They have never seen a black man before. You use this. You dance for them. You show off your strength. You help secure safe passage for the expedition. But when you return to St. Louis, you are still enslaved. Lewis and Clark get money and land. You get nothing. You ask Clark for your freedom. He refuses. He beats you. You eventually gain your freedom, but years later, you die in obscurity, possibly running a freight business in Tennessee, or living with the Crow Nation as a chief. The end of your story is a mystery. Survival here was about being essential but invisible. It was about carrying the weight of an expedition on your shoulders and getting no credit. Let the river flow on. We're going to a place of high finance and deep secrets. The year is 1910. You're in Richmond, Virginia. Congratulations. You're Maggie L. Walker. You're the first black woman to charter a bank in the United States, the St. Luke Penny Savings Bank. You started as a teacher, then worked for the Independent Order of St. Luke, a mutual aid society. You took it from the brink of bankruptcy to a thriving organization. You realize that black people need economic power. You open the bank. You encourage children to save their pennies. You give loans to black businesses that white banks ignore. You walk with a limp because of a knee injury, but you are a giant. You navigate the racism of the Jim Crow South with a steely grace. Survival here was about economic sovereignty. It was about proving that black money mattered. It was about building a fortress of wealth that could protect the community. Let the bank vault close. We are going to a place of melody and sorrow. The year is 1939. You're standing on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial. Congratulations. You're Marian Anderson. You're the greatest contralto in the world. But the Daughters of the American Revolution refused to let you sing at Constitution Hall because you are black. Eleanor Roosevelt resigned from the DAR in protest. She arranged for you to sing here at the feet of Lincoln. There are 75,000 people watching. Millions more are listening on the radio. It is cold. You're wearing a fur coat. You are terrified, but you open your mouth. My country, 'tis of thee, sweet land of liberty. You change the words. Instead of thee I sing, you sing to thee we sing. A subtle shift, a claim of ownership. Your voice rings out. It is perfect. It is undeniable. Survival here was about grace under pressure. It was about answering bigotry with beauty. As you drift off to sleep, you think about the inventor, the explorer, the banker, the singer. They all created something new, a machine, a map, a bank, a moment. They refused to be defined by what they were denied. You are safe in your bed. The night is calm, but the shoes are worn. The map is drawn, the penny is saved, the song is sung. Sleep now, the machine works, the path is cleared, the vault is secure, the voice is heard. The echo of Marian Anderson's voice fades, lingering like a ghost in the marble of the Lincoln Memorial. We are moving again, leaving the crowds of Washington for the solitude of the high seas, but not on a whaling ship. We are on a warship, but you aren't a sailor. You are the captain. The year is 1944. You are in the Atlantic. Congratulations. You are Hugh Mulzac. You are the first black man to command a United States merchant marine ship, the SS Booker T. Washington. You earned your master's license decades ago, but no one would hire you as a captain. They offered you jobs as a cook, a steward. You refused. You ran a painting business. You waited. When the war started, they came to you. We need you, they said, but you have to command an all-black crew. You refused again. I will command a mixed crew, or I will not sail. They relented. You are now standing on the bridge of a Liberty ship. Your crew represents 18 nationalities. You sail through U-boat-infested waters. You deliver tanks, planes, and ammunition to the front lines in Europe. You dodge torpedoes. You navigate through storms. Your ship is a symbol. It proves that integration works. It proves that leadership is about competence, not colour. Survival here was about holding the line, not just against the Nazis, but against the prejudice of your own government. Let the sea spray settle. We are going to a place of ink and paper, but with a different kind of power. The year is 1847. You're in Rochester, New York. Congratulations. You're Frederick Douglass. You're starting your own newspaper, the North Star. You escaped slavery in Maryland. You became a famous orator. But white abolitionists wanted to control your voice. Just tell your story, they said. Leave the philosophy to us. You rejected that. You bought a printing press. You are writing editorials that shake the nation. You argue that the Constitution is an anti-slavery document. You demand immediate emancipation. Your house is a station on the Underground Railroad. You hide runaways in your basement while you write articles upstairs. You travel to England, to Ireland. You become the most photographed man of the 19th century. You understand the power of the image. You refuse to be depicted as a caricature. You stare into the camera with the fierce gaze of a lion. Survival here was about owning your own voice. It was about refusing to be anyone's prop. Let the printing press clatter. We are going to a place of snow and ice, but not the Arctic. We are going to the bottom of the world. The year is 1955. You're in Antarctica. Congratulations. You're George W. Gibbs, Jr. You're a sailor in the US Navy. You're part of Operation Deep Freeze. You're the first black person to set foot on the continent of Antarctica. The cold is unimaginable. Minus 60 degrees. The wind screams across the ice shelf. You're helping to build Little America Wesen, a scientific research station. You're driving a tractor over crevasses that could swallow a building. You are breaking ice for the ships. You face isolation. You face the polar night, 6 months of darkness. But you also face wonder. The penguins, the southern lights, the sheer, terrifying beauty of a place where humans are not meant to be. Survival here was about endurance in the most extreme environment on Earth. It was about pushing the boundaries of human exploration. Let the ice crack. We are going to a place of heat and rhythm, but not jazz or blues. This is the rhythm of the spoken word. The year is 1973. You're in the Bronx, New York. Congratulations. You're DJ Kool Herc. You're in a rec room at 1520 Sedgwick Avenue. You're throwing a party for your sister. You have 2 turntables. You realize that people only dance to the break, the percussion part of the song, so you extend the break. You play 2 copies of the same record. You switch back and forth. You create a continuous loop of drums. You grab a microphone. You start talking over the beat. You're toasting, a tradition from your native Jamaica. You're inventing hip-hop. It starts small, a block party, a park jam, but it grows. It becomes the voice of the inner city. It becomes a global culture. Survival here was about innovation. It was about taking the scraps of disco and funk and building a new musical language. As you drift off to sleep, you think about the captain, the orator, the explorer, the DJ. They all charted new courses, through the ocean, through the political landscape, through the ice, through the sound waves. They were all pioneers. You're safe in your bed. The night is quiet, but the ship arrives. The newspaper is read. The ice is crossed. The beat drops. Sleep now. The cargo is delivered. The argument is made. The footprint is left. The party is started. The breakbeat of the Bronx fades. The pulse of the speakers settling into a quiet hum. We are moving again, leaving the birth of a global culture for the rebirth of a nation, far across the Atlantic. The year is 1957. You're in Accra, Ghana. Congratulations. You're witnessing the birth of modern Africa. You're watching Kwame Nkrumah. You're standing in the old polo grounds. Hundreds of thousands of people are gathered. The Union Jack is lowered. The flag of Ghana, red, gold, green with a black star, is raised. You hear Nkrumah speak. Ghana, your beloved country, is free forever. It is electric. It is the first sub-Saharan African nation to gain independence from colonial rule. It is a signal to the rest of the continent. You're not just a spectator. You are part of the movement. You helped organize the strikes. You distributed the pamphlets. You went to prison with Nkrumah. You see the hope in the eyes of the crowd. They are no longer subjects of the British Crown. They are citizens of Ghana. Survival here was about vision. It was about imagining a future that the colonial powers said was impossible. It was about taking back your own history. Let the cheers fade. We are going to a place of quiet, disciplined focus. The year is 1985. You are in a hospital in Baltimore. Congratulations. You are Ben Carson. You are a neurosurgeon. You are about to do something no one has ever done successfully. You are going to separate conjoined twins joined at the back of the head. The surgery takes 22 hours. You have a team of 70 people. You have to stop the hearts of the babies to prevent them from bleeding to death. You have 1 hour to work before brain damage sets in. It is a high-wire act. 1 slip, 1 mistake, and 2 lives are lost. You grew up in poverty in Detroit. Your mother couldn't read. You had a temper. You almost stabbed a friend once. But you turned it around. You read books. You focused. Now your hands are saving lives. The surgery is a success. The twins survive. You become a legend. Survival here was about redemption. It was about overcoming your own demons to achieve the impossible. Let the hospital monitors beep. We are going to a place of wind and water. The year is 2005. You're in New Orleans. Congratulations. You're a survivor of Hurricane Katrina. The levees have broken. The city is drowning. You're trapped on your roof. The water is rising. It smells of oil, sewage, and death. You have no food, no water. The sun beats down. You wave at helicopters, but they fly past. You help your neighbours. You pull people out of the water. You share what little you have. You're abandoned by your government. But you do not break. You wait. You pray. You endure. Eventually you are rescued. But you have lost everything. Your home, your photos, your community. You rebuild. You return to the lower Ninth Ward. You build a new house on stilts. You refuse to let the storm wash you away. Survival here was about resilience. It was about holding on to your home when the very earth turned against you. Let the floodwaters recede. We're going to a place of stars and dreams. The year is 1992. You are in space. Congratulations. You are Mae Jemison. You are the first black woman in space. You are aboard the Space Shuttle Endeavour. You look out the window. You see the Earth. It is blue, fragile, beautiful. You don't see borders. You don't see race. You just see home. You're a doctor, an engineer, a dancer. You carry a photo of Bessie Coleman in your flight suit. You are the culmination of centuries of dreaming. You conduct experiments on bone cells. You float in microgravity. You feel weightless. Survival here was about breaking the ultimate barrier. It was about leaving the planet that tried to hold you down. As you drift off to sleep, you think about the revolutionary, the surgeon, the survivor, the astronaut. They all reached for something higher. Independence, life, home, the stars. They refused to settle. You are safe in your bed. The night is quiet, but the flag waves, the heart beats, the house stands, the shuttle orbits. Sleep now. The nation is born. The twins are separate. The city is dry. The universe is open. The view from the space shuttle fades. The blue marble of Earth shrinking into a peaceful memory. We are coming back down now, returning from the edge of space, from the depths of the mines, from the heat of the plains. We are returning to where we started, the quiet of your own room. But the room feels different now. It is filled with ghosts, but not the scary kind. These are the ghosts of the builders, the dreamers, the fighters, the survivors. You have walked in the boots of the Buffalo Soldiers, feeling the bite of the Montana winter. You have felt the heat of the great Zimbabwe sun on your back as you laid stone upon stone. You have heard the whispers of the Underground Railroad and the roar of the crowd in Berlin. These stories are not just history, they are proof of human resilience. Proof that no matter how dark the night, the morning always comes. As you lay in the dark, listen to the silence. It isn't empty. It is full of the echoes of those who came before. The cowboy on the trail singing to the cattle, the mother in the swamp hushing her child, the pilot in the cockpit checking his gauges, the poet at her desk lighting a candle against the dark. They are all here. They are standing guard over your sleep. You have survived the journey through time. You have witnessed the struggle and the triumph. And now you can rest. Your breathing slows. Your muscles relax. The weight of the day lifts off your shoulders. You are safe. You are warm. You are free. The history is not a burden. It is a foundation. It is the solid ground beneath your feet. It is the reason you can dream. So close your eyes. Let the stories drift away like smoke from a dying fire. Let the voices fade into a gentle hum. Sleep now. The work is done. The legacy is secure. The future is waiting. Good night.